Children's Ocean Life Encyclopedia. Children's Ocean Life Encyclopedia. By Sally Morgan. Introduction. Vast oceans cover much of Earth's surface. They are home to millions of different animals, from the massive blue whale to tiny microscopic animals that float in the water. This book takes you on a voyage of discovery through these enormous areas of water. You can learn about waves and tides. You will find out about animals that live along the coasts, on colorful coral reefs, and in the open ocean, as well as the mysterious animals of the deep. Finally, you can discover why the world's oceans are under threat and find out what is being done to protect them. The world's oceans. Earth is often called the blue planet because more than 2/3 of its surface is covered by water. Most of this water is found in the oceans. Oceans are huge areas of water that are many thousands of feet deep in places. The oceans are home to billions of animals and plants. 5 oceans. There are 5 oceans. The largest is the Pacific Ocean, which stretches between the Americas, Australia, and the eastern coast of Asia. The smallest is the Arctic Ocean, which surrounds the North Pole. Southern Ocean. The Southern Ocean surrounds Antarctica. Most of this ocean is over 13,100 feet, 4,000 meters, deep. It is a dangerous ocean with strong winds and massive icebergs. The oceans. All 5 of the world's oceans are connected. Smaller areas of water, called seas, are joined to some of the oceans. These include the Caribbean, Mediterranean, and North Seas. Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Arctic Ocean, Indian Ocean, Southern Ocean, Caribbean Sea, Mediterranean Sea, North Sea, North America, South America, Australia, Europe, Africa, Asia. Ocean islands. Oceans are mostly wide, empty areas of water. Islands are scattered across the open oceans. These pieces of land rise up from under the water. Islands may cover large areas of land or just a few square miles. A small island in the Indian Ocean. Coral reefs. Coral reefs are found off coasts and around islands in tropical parts of the world. Reefs are home to many kinds of fish and other colorful marine animals. Coral reefs are built from the skeletons of tiny sea animals. Did you know? The Pacific Ocean covers around 63.7 million square miles, 165 million square kilometers, that's more than 15 times the size of the United States. The Arctic Ocean is just 1.5 times the size of the USA. Exploring the oceans. The first boats were built more than 40,000 years ago from wood and animal skin. As boats became larger, people traveled away from the safety of the coast to explore the oceans. Ancient Egyptians. The ancient Egyptians built wooden boats that they sailed in the Mediterranean Sea. They may have sailed over 600 miles, 1,000 kilometers, along the coast of Africa to present-day Ethiopia. This dhow is similar to the boats sailed by the ancient Egyptians. Map making. The first maps of the world were drawn in the 15th century when much of the world was still unexplored. As explorers discovered new lands, the maps were updated. Astrolabe. This early navigational tool is called an astrolabe. Sailors used an astrolabe to work out how far north or south they were from the equator. To do this, they needed to align the sighting rule in the middle of the disk with the sun. Sighting rule. 16th century astrolabe. Sir Walter Raleigh. In 1584, English explorer Sir Walter Raleigh sailed across the Atlantic Ocean and set up the first English settlement in North America. Many years later he explored the coast of South America. Captain Cook. James Cook was captain of the first European ship to land in Australia. His ship Endeavour left England in 1768 and sailed across the Pacific and around New Zealand before discovering Australia. He came ashore at Botany Bay, Australia, in 1770. Captain James Cook. A flat-bottom hull allowed Endeavour to sail in shallow water. Did you know? In 1760, clockmaker John Harrison invented the chronometer. It was a special clock that could keep time at sea, and it enabled sailors to work out their east-west position. Waves. Waves are created by wind blowing over the surface of the water. The stronger the wind, the bigger the waves. Waves travel across the ocean, just like ripples cross a pond. Breakers. When waves reach shallow water near a coast, they slow down and become taller. Finally, the crest, or top, of the wave topples over and crashes down onto the shore. Tsunamis. Tsunamis are waves made by earthquakes under the ocean. By the time the waves hit the coast, they may be many feet tall. Powerful tsunamis can cause a lot of damage. In 2004, a tsunami caused a lot of damage to this village in Banda Aceh, Indonesia. Did you know? In 1993, a tsunami struck the island of Hokkaido, Japan. The waves were about 98 feet, 30 meters, tall, as high as a 10-story building. Bow waves. Large waves form at the bow, or front, of a boat as it moves through water. During stormy weather, waves break over the bow and crash down on the deck. Surfing. Riding a surfboard on the crest of a wave is an exciting sport. Skilled surfers can twist and turn, jump in the air, and ride their boards right under the wave as it rises up and curls over. Tides. Twice a day, the sea rises up ashore and then falls back again. High tide is when the sea reaches its highest point up ashore, and low tide is when it is at its lowest point on the shore. Low tide. At low tide, the sea exposes the whole of the shore. In some places, the difference between high and low tides is great, but in others it is very small. The sun and the moon. The tides are caused by the pull of the sun and the moon. This pull is called gravity, and it pulls Earth's oceans toward the sun and moon. This creates a bulge of water that produces high tides. At the same time, there is less water in other parts of the ocean, and this is what causes the low tides. Bulge of water produces high tides. Less water at low tides. Sun's pull on Earth. Moon's orbit. Earth. Moon. Sun. Wading birds. Wading birds, such as oystercatchers and curlews, visit the coast at low tide to feed on small sea animals left uncovered by the tide. The birds poke in the mud or sand with their long bills, looking for worms and snails. Resting place. The exposed areas of the shore are home to many creatures. Animals such as seals can use the seashore as a place to rest and breed. Male elephant seals have a nose that looks a little like an elephant's trunk. Did you know? The largest tide in the world occurs in the Bay of Fundy in Canada. Here, the sea level changes by a huge 52.5 feet, 16 meters. Ocean currents. Oceans are never still. Winds blowing over the surface of the oceans create flows of water called currents. These currents travel around the world. Warm and cold currents. Currents of warm water flow from the equator toward the poles. Cold currents start in the Arctic and Antarctic and flow toward the equator. Pacific Ocean. Atlantic Ocean. Indian Ocean. Arctic Ocean. Southern Ocean. North America. Greenland. South America. Africa. Europe. Asia. Australia. Warm current. Cold current. Mild winters. Tropical palm trees can grow in this southern part of Great Britain, below, because there is a warm current flowing along the coast. This makes mild winters, and snow and frost are rare. Plankton. Sometimes, an ocean current brings up a lot of food from the seabed. Tiny plants and animals called plankton feed well and increase in number, forming a plankton bloom. A plankton bloom can change the color of the water and measure several hundred miles across. Plankton. Plenty of fish. Some ocean currents are high in nutrients and encourage plankton to grow. This attracts fish that feed on the plankton. The large numbers of fish attract predators, such as seabirds. A gull plucks a small fish from the water. Did you know? The Gulf Stream is an ocean current that flows across the Atlantic Ocean from the Caribbean Sea to Western Europe. It measures 50 to 90 miles, 80 to 150 kilometers, wide. Ocean weather. Oceans play an important role in the world's weather. Tropical storms, hurricanes, and waterspouts all form over water. Tropical storms. Rain falls most days in the regions nearest the equator, called the tropics. Storm clouds form off the coast during the day and bring a heavy downpour of rain at night. Storm clouds gather over the Caribbean Sea. Hurricanes. Hurricanes are huge, spinning storms that form over warm water. Strong hurricane winds with speeds of up to 200 miles, 320 kilometers, per hour can cause a lot of damage if they move over land. The eye of the hurricane. Monsoon. Each year, winds from the Indian Ocean bring heavy rain to Southeast Asia. These winds are called monsoons and they last several months. The monsoon season ends when the winds change direction and blow away from land. Monsoon rains falling in India. Did you know? On July 27, 2005, an amazing 37 inches, 94 centimeters, of rain fell on Mumbai, India, in just 24 hours. This monsoon washed away thousands of homes, roads, and railroad tracks and killed more than 600 people. Water spout. A waterspout is a spinning column of air and water that moves over water. It looks just like a mini tornado. Although a waterspout is not as dangerous as a tornado, it can damage small boats. Salt water. Seawater tastes very salty. This is because the water contains a lot of dissolved salt. Humans cannot drink seawater because it makes them ill. But animals that live in the sea have ways of coping with the high levels of salt. Salt pans. When salt water gathers in shallow ponds and the water dries up, it leaves behind large areas of salt called salt pans. The salt is collected and used for cooking. Dried salt on the surface of a salt pan. Adding more salt. Some of the salt in seawater is from the breakdown of rocks and from hot water vents on the ocean floor, see page 162. Volcanic eruptions under the oceans also add salt to the water. Clouds of steam from an undersea volcanic eruption. Albatross. The albatross can drink salt water because it has a special salt gland above its eye. The gland takes the extra salt from the bird's body and gets rid of it in a salty liquid that drips from its nostrils. Turtle tears. Just like the albatross, turtles have a salt gland behind their eyes. By getting rid of salt through their eyes, nostrils, or tongue, turtles can live in salt water without becoming ill. Did you know? The water in the Dead Sea in the Middle East is 10 times saltier than in the oceans. A person can float on the surface and not sink because the salty water is heavier than normal water and pushes harder against objects floating in it. Living in water. Animals that live in water are called aquatic animals. Their bodies are adapted to life in water. Fish have gills to breathe underwater, while seals have flippers to help them swim. Sharks. Sharks are fish, and they breathe using gills. Water enters through their mouths and passes through the gills, where the oxygen is removed. Then the water leaves through the gill slits. Most sharks have 5 gill slits on each side of their head. Crabs. A crab has a heavy outer skeleton covering its body. A crab's body is quite flat so that it can easily squeeze between and under rocks. Jellyfish. Jellyfish have soft bodies that are mostly made of water. They must stay in water to keep their shape. If you take them out of the ocean, they collapse into blobs like jello. Did you know? There may be more than 2,000 different species, or types, of jellyfish living in the world's oceans. Seals. Seals are aquatic mammals with flippers instead of arms and legs. Although seals live in water, they breathe air and have to return to land to give birth. Food chains. A food chain shows how nutrients pass from plants to animals as one eats the other. In the ocean, plant plankton are eaten by zooplankton, or animal plankton. The zooplankton are eaten by larger animals, and these animals are then eaten by even bigger animals. Sharks. Many sharks have a diet of seals, turtles, fish, and even large seabirds. However, some sharks, such as the whale shark and basking shark, eat plankton and small fish. This great white shark has leapt out of the water to catch a seal. Plant plankton. Plant plankton are at the bottom of the ocean food chains. They are called producers because they make their own food using sunlight. Plant eaters. Zooplankton, such as this crab larvae, are plant eaters. They eat the producers, or plant plankton. The plant eaters are known as primary consumers. Meat eaters. Larger animals called the secondary consumers eat the primary consumers. Secondary consumers are hunters. There are many different hunters in the ocean, including fish and squid. Top meat eaters. Top carnivores, or meat eaters, such as pelicans, above, sharks, and dolphins, eat fish. A top carnivore is an animal that no other animal eats. They are at the top of the ocean food chain. Did you know? Pelicans dive into water with such force that they stun fish near the surface. They can then catch the stunned fish by scooping them up in their large bills. Beneath the surface. Imagine if you could walk into the sea from a beach. First you would walk through the shallow water of the continental shelf that extends out from the coast. Then the seabed slopes down for thousands of feet to the deep ocean floor. Ocean levels. In some places, the continental shelf is narrow, but in other areas it stretches for hundreds of miles. The continental slope links the continental shelf with the ocean floor, which may be thousands of feet down. Sea level. Continental shelf. Continental slope. Ocean floor. Different creatures are found at each depth of the ocean. Sea lions. Sea lions swim in the shallow water close to the shore above the continental shelf. They like to pull themselves out of the water and lie on sandy beaches. Starfish. Starfish are found on the continental shelf. They crawl over the sand, hunting for mussels and other shellfish to eat. Hammerhead. Sharks, such as this hammerhead shark, are found in both shallow and deep water. Some sharks can dive down thousands of feet to the bottom of the oceans. Spider crab. Spider crabs are creatures of the seabed. They have been found on the ocean floor over 10,000 feet, 3,000 meters, below the water's surface. Did you know? The deepest known part of the ocean is the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. It lies about 7 miles, 11 kilometers, below sea level. Diving. People cannot live in water, but they can dive underwater. Divers can take a deep breath and swim underwater for a minute or so, but they need a supply of air to stay for longer. Breathing underwater. Scuba divers carry a tank of air to breathe underwater. The tank is connected to a regulator, which the diver places in his or her mouth. When the diver breathes in, air flows through the regulator into the mouth. Regulator. Diving helmet. Early divers wore heavy diving helmets. Air was pumped from the surface into the helmets through rubber tubes. Exploring reefs. Many divers like to explore coral reefs. These are good places to find brightly colored fish and other marine creatures, such as dolphins and sea turtles. Discovering wrecks. Shipwrecks in shallow water are popular dive sites. By exploring a wreck, divers can learn a lot about the history of the ship. They may even discover gold coins and other valuables in the wreckage. Exploring the deep ocean. The deep ocean is very cold and the huge pressure would crush a human instantly. Scientists need high-tech equipment to explore this part of the ocean. Submersibles. Submersibles are specially designed mini submarines that can dive up to 15,000 feet, 4,500 meters, deep. Inside, there is room for only 2 or 3 people. This submersible has a strong frame made from titanium metal up to 2 inches, 5 centimeters, thick. ROVs. Remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, are controlled from the surface of the water. These vehicles have mechanical arms to pick up objects, and cameras to film any strange creatures. Underwater features. Using technology such as submersibles, scientists have made maps of some of the ocean floor. They have found mountain ranges, such as the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, and deep valleys, such as the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge runs down the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Atlantic Ocean. North America. South America. Africa. Europe. Deep-sea creatures. Scientists have discovered amazing creatures living deep underwater. They include sea stars, blind shrimp-like creatures called amphipods, and comb jellies, which can produce their own light. Sea star. Comb jelly. Amphipod. Did you know? The Mid-Atlantic Ridge runs from Iceland to the Antarctic, and is more than 7,500 miles, 12,000 kilometers, long. It is the world's longest mountain range. Beaches and shores. The world's beaches and shores stretch for thousands of miles around every continent and island. There are rocky cliffs, sandy beaches, oozing mud flats, and hot mangrove swamps. The coast is a meeting place between the sea and the land. Changing coasts. Coasts are never the same for very long. At high tide the shore is covered in salty seawater, while at low tide the coast is exposed to the sun and wind. Rocky beaches. The constant battering of waves against a cliff wears away the rocks. Eventually, the cliff crumbles and rocks fall, creating a rocky beach. Over time, more and more rock ends up in the sea. Protecting beaches. Groins are special walls built on a beach to protect the coast from battering waves. The groins slow down the waves and trap the shingle, or sand, so it is not carried away. Groins. Sea arches. Soft rocks along a coast wear away faster than hard rocks, creating bays. The hard rocks form headlands. These headland rocks slowly wear away, first creating caves, then arches. This sea arch has formed on the south coast of Great Britain. Spits. A spit is a narrow strip of land that is formed when the tides remove sand from one beach and drop it farther along the coast. A sand spit in New Zealand. Sand spit. Did you know? The 12 Apostles are 12 tall rock pillars along a stretch of Australian coast. They formed as the sea battered the coast, wearing away softer rocks and leaving behind pillars of hard rock. Rocky shores. When beaches are covered with rocks, they are called rocky shores. The rocks create a lot of hiding places for animals. Tidal pools. When the tide goes out, water is trapped between the rocks. This creates tidal pools, cut off from the sea until the tide returns. Rock shelters. Tidal pools are miniature worlds. They provide shelter for plenty of animals, such as starfish, left, snails, crabs, and barnacles. Some seaweeds also live in tidal pools. Coastal creatures. Marine iguanas live in the cold Pacific Ocean around the Galapagos Islands. They are reptiles, which means that they are cold-blooded creatures. They come out of the water to sunbathe on the rocks and warm up. Seaweed. Seaweeds cling to the rocks surrounding the pools. Small animals, such as crabs, snails, and fish, hide among the seaweed. Blenny fish. Did you know? The blenny, a small tidal pool fish, is also called the sea frog because it likes to sunbathe on the rocks. It jumps back into the water with a plop if it is disturbed. Surviving on the rocks. Life is tough on rocky shores when the tide goes out. The animals that live on the rocks have special ways to survive out of water. Limpets. Limpets feed on the tiny algae, plant life, that grows on the rocks. When the tide goes out, the limpets stick tight to the rocks so that they do not dry out. Limpets have a dome-shaped shell that can survive the battering waves. Did you know? Limpets return to the same place every time the tide goes out. Some limpets live on the same rock all of their lives. Mussels. Mussels attach their shells to rocks. They have two shells that are hinged together. When covered by water, mussels open their shells and feed. When the tide goes out, they shut their shells tightly together for protection. Sea anemones. Most sea anemones, below, do not like being uncovered by the tide. Some survive by pulling in their tentacles. They look like a blob of jello on the rock. Tentacles. Tidal pooling. Tidal pools can be explored when the tide is out. However, you have to be careful not to get caught by the incoming tide and also not to slip on the rocks. Cliff life. Cliffs tower above many shorelines. They are often windy places, sprayed with salty seawater. Life is difficult for the plants and animals that make their homes high on the rocks. Towering cliffs. Cliffs are large lumps of rock that rise almost straight up from the shore. Most are less than 330 feet, 100 meters, tall, but in the Hawaiian Islands some cliffs are 3,300 feet, 1,000 meters, high. Cliff plants. Cliff plants grow in gaps between the rocks. They grow close to the ground to stay out of the wind. Living on a cliff. Cliffs are home to colonies, or groups, of seabirds such as gannets and kittiwakes. They like cliffs because predators, such as foxes and cats, cannot reach them. They lay their eggs on narrow ledges on the cliff's steep side. These steep chalk cliffs are on the coast of Dover, Great Britain. Seabirds nest on a cliff on the northern coast of Great Britain. Puffins. Puffins live together in large colonies on cliff tops. They make their nests in long burrows that they dig in the soil. Did you know? The 1,300-foot, 400-meter, high cliffs of Latravjarg in Iceland are the most westerly point in Europe. The cliffs are home to more than 1 million auks, 800,000 razorbills, and thousands of puffins and guillemots. Sandy shores. Tiny grains of sand are made as waves batter rocks into smaller and smaller pieces. Tides carry the sand along the coast and wash it up on the shore to form sandy beaches. Traveling coconuts. Coconut palms are a common sight on tropical beaches. When coconuts drop into the sea, they are carried by the tide to other beaches, where they grow into new palms. Sand colonies. Soft, sandy beaches are perfect places for many sea creatures, such as seals, above, to give birth. Seals raise their young in large colonies on the beaches. Behind the beach. Winds from the sea blow sand inland. Small piles of sand soon build up around obstacles such as fences, plants, and stones. The piles of sand become gradually larger and, eventually, a sand dune is formed. Did you know? Sand dunes are gradually blown inland by the wind. In some parts of France, sand dunes have buried whole villages. Sea shells. Many sea animals have shells. When these animals die, their soft body rots away, leaving behind the shell. Empty shells are often washed ashore. Shells of many different shapes and sizes can be found on beaches. Living in sand. At first glance, little seems to live on a sandy beach, but many different animals, such as crabs and snails, are hidden in the sand. They come out of hiding when the tide comes in. Sand dollar. The sand dollar, above, is related to starfish and sea urchins. It has a flat body covered by spines, which it uses to burrow through the sand. Weaver fish. Danger lurks in the sand. The weaver fish has poisonous spines, which stick up for protection when it has buried itself in the sand. Anybody who treads on it gets a very painful sting. Tidal zones. The highest point reached by the tide is called the high tide mark, and the lowest point is the low tide mark. The shore between these two marks is divided up into the high, mid, and low tide zones. The spray zone lies above the high tide zone. High tide mark. Low tide mark. Spray zone. High tide zone. Mid tide zone. Low tide zone. Coming out to feed. Animals such as the cockle hide from predators in the sand at low tide. They emerge when the tide comes in. Cockles are hunted by many animals, including crabs, birds, fish, and this colorful sun star, below. Cockle foot. The cockle can escape from predators by squirting a jet of water from its shell. Did you know? The razor shell gets its name from the shape of its shell, which is the shape of an old-fashioned cutthroat razor. Scavengers. Waves wash seaweed and other marine debris up the beach, where it collects in a line at the high tide mark. This is called the strand line. Strand lines. The strand line is mostly a smelly mass of rotting seaweed, but it also contains dead bodies of fish and birds, and garbage from passing ships. Strand lines along a beach in Thailand. Scavenging crabs. Ghost crabs emerge from their sandy burrows in search of dead fish. They use their claws to tear the fish into small pieces that they can eat. Sand fleas. Sand fleas, above, are among the smallest scavengers on the strand line. These flea-like animals use their long legs to hop over the sand. Coastal visitors. Sometimes, the dead bodies of whales and seals are washed up onto the shore. These attract animals such as brown bears and eagles. Bears that live by the coast often walk along the beach looking for food. Did you know? More than 100 polar bears have been seen feasting on the body of a dead whale washed up on an Arctic beach. Estuaries. Estuaries and deltas form where rivers flow into the ocean. Here, the fresh water of the river mixes with the salt water of the ocean. The Nile Delta. The Nile Delta lies at the mouth of the Nile River in Egypt, left. Over thousands of years, the river has dropped large amounts of mud. This mud has built up into low-lying land, with a lot of channels of water leading out to sea. Nile Delta. Nile River. Egypt. River bends. As a river gets close to the sea, it gets wider and wider. It starts to weave about in large bends called meanders. The wide mouth of a river, where it meets the sea, is known as an estuary. Sea otter. Some sea otters live in the shallow water of estuaries, where they hunt for crabs, mussels, and snails on the seabed. Sea otters often eat while floating on the surface of the water. Webbed feet help sea otters swim easily through the water. Did you know? Sea otters have the thickest fur of all animals. Their fur insulates their bodies, keeping them warm while they swim in the cold water. Feeding birds. The mud at a river mouth is full of worms and snails, which attract flocks of feeding birds. Birds use their long bills to find food in the mud. Mud flats. Estuary mud is thick and very smelly, but it is full of nutrients. This makes it a great home for animals such as worms and snails. Long bills. Wading birds have differently shaped bills designed to help them feed. The oyster catcher, for example, uses its thick, straight bill to open the shells of mussels and razor shells. Oyster catcher. Lugworm. The lugworm digs a burrow in the mud. It sucks water into its burrow and filters out any food. Wading birds prey upon lugworms, pulling them out of their burrows. Lugworm. Snails. Mud is full of all kinds of snails, such as cockles, periwinkles, and spire shells. Spire shells are found on the surface, but cockles lie under the mud. This snail has a spiral shells that protects its soft body. Did you know? Up to 500 cockles can be found in just 10 square feet, 1 square meters, of mud. Flatfish. The bodies of flatfish such as plaice, turbot, and flounder are squashed from side to side. This shape is perfect for living on the seabed. If you look closely, you will see that one eye has moved so that both are on the top. Both eyes are on one side of the head. Flounder. Marsh and swamp. Swamps and salt marshes lie close to the shoreline. When the tides are high enough, seawater often covers them, bringing in plenty of nutrients. Salt marshes. Salt marshes are formed when mud builds up behind banks of small stones, called shingle. Salt-loving plants, such as cordgrass and sea lavender, start to grow. The marsh is crisscrossed with small streams, or creeks, that fill with salt water during high tides. Nurseries. Salt marshes are breeding grounds for shrimp and fish. The young shrimp and fish spend the first part of their life in the safety of the creeks before they swim out to sea. Young shrimp. Marsh plants. Salt marsh plants have to be able to live in salty ground. They are often covered by seawater. They have small, fleshy leaves that can store water. Samphire, right, is a plant that grows on salt marshes and can be eaten by humans. Alligators. Alligators are reptiles. The American alligator is found in salt marshes and swamps, where it hunts mostly fish and crabs. Larger alligators attack deer, and even eat other smaller alligators. Alligators have powerful jaws with many teeth that can crush bones. Long, broad snout. Did you know? More than 1 million alligators live in the Florida Everglades. Mangrove swamps. Mangrove swamps are found along tropical coasts near the equator. Here, there are strange-looking trees, fish that can walk, and crabs that wave to each other. Swamp roots. Mangrove trees look as if they are growing on stilts because their roots, supporting them in the mud, come out of the water. The tangle of roots is a great hiding place for young fish. The tree roots come out of the mud. Mudskippers. A mudskipper has gills, but it mostly breathes through its skin. This allows the fish to leave the water. It uses its stiff front fins to push its body across the mud and even up mangrove roots. Birds of prey. Ospreys are the top hunters in a mangrove swamp. They feed on fish and small animals. They build nests out of twigs, which they use for many years. Fiddler crabs. The male fiddler crab has an extra-large claw that it waves up and down as a signal to other crabs. At low tide, male fiddler crabs sit at the entrance to their burrows and wave their claws to attract females. Did you know? Mangrove swamps help to protect coasts from hurricane and tsunami damage. They act as barriers between the sea and the land. Nesting on the beach. Many creatures, such as crabs and turtles, crawl onto beaches to lay their eggs. Their young hatch a few weeks later and hurry away to begin life in the ocean. Digging a nest. Female turtles dig holes on the beach, where they lay about 100 eggs. They cover their eggs with sand and then return to the sea. A green turtle uses its flippers to dig a nest hole in the sand. Race for the sea. After baby turtles hatch, they dig their way out of the nest and dash across the sand to the sea. Birds and crocodiles gather on the beach to feed on the baby turtles as they emerge, but some make it safely into the ocean. Horseshoe crabs. Each spring, when there is an especially high tide, up to 1 million horseshoe crabs appear on the beaches of Delaware Bay. Each female crab digs a small pit and lays about 20,000 eggs. A thick, spiny shell protects the horseshoe crab from hunters. Did you know? The horseshoe crab is not really a crab. It is a distant relative of the spider. It is a very old creature, whose looks have not changed much in 300 million years. Crab invasion. Red crabs live in the forests on Christmas Island in the Pacific Ocean. Once a year, the crabs leave the forests and walk to the ocean, where they breed on the beaches. In places, millions of crabs are on the move, covering the ground. A red crab's body is about 5 inches, 13 centimeters, across. Coastal life. The shallow waters around land are full of life. Here, tiny plants called phytoplankton and animals called zooplankton float in the water. These plankton are food for large numbers of fish, which attract larger predators, such as sharks, whales, and seabirds. Tiny plants. The moving ocean stirs up mud on the seabed. This releases nutrients into the water. These nutrients provide food for tiny plants called phytoplankton that float in the water. Diatoms. Diatoms are a type of phytoplankton that have hard, shell-like skeletons. The skeleton is in 2 parts, called valves, that fit together tightly. There are many types of diatoms, each with its own design of the skeleton. Diatoms. Phytoplankton. The phytoplankton form the bottom of the marine food chain. Just like plants on land, phytoplankton can make their own food using sunlight, carbon dioxide, a gas, and nutrients from the water. Phytoplankton, magnified times 50. Did you know? Phytoplankton are able to grow and reproduce very quickly. They can triple in numbers in just one day. Dinoflagellates. Dinoflagellates make up much of the phytoplankton. At night, these tiny organisms give out a strange light. This is called bioluminescence. Plankton bloom. Sometimes, there are extra nutrients in the water and the phytoplankton increase in number. There are so many plankton that the water changes color. This is called a plankton bloom, and it can grow so large it can even be seen from space. This large plankton bloom is off the coast of Argentina. Tiny animals. Phytoplankton are eaten by the creatures that make up the zooplankton, or animal plankton. These animals drift in the water, carried around by tides and currents. Baby fish. Many fish lay their eggs in coastal waters. When they hatch, the baby fish feed on phytoplankton. They grow quickly until they are large enough to swim out to sea. Microscopic creatures. Most animal plankton are tiny organisms, such as copepods and amphipods, above. The larvae, young, of marine animals such as starfish, jellyfish, and barnacles are also called animal plankton. Salps. Salps are tube-like organisms about the size of a large peanut. They suck in water and food. Where there is plenty of food there are large swarms of salps. Salps may link together to form chains that are up to 16 feet, 5 meters, long. Jellyfish. Jellyfish are the largest type of animal plankton. They have a bell-shaped body and long tentacles, which hang below. Many just drift in the water, while others move by flapping their bell-shaped bodies. Did you know? The weight of all the plankton in the oceans is greater than that of all the fish, dolphins, and whales put together. Plankton feeders. Animal and plant plankton are the favorite food of many animals, including ocean giants such as the blue whale, whale shark, and basking shark. Filter feeders. Most plankton feeders filter, or strain, tiny organisms from the water. Humpback whales, left, have frilly plates called baleen in their mouth that filter the water. Some other ocean creatures strain food from the water using their gills. Big mouth. The basking shark swims along with its mouth wide open. When its mouth is full of water, the fish closes it and squeezes the water out through its gills. Any food is trapped inside by rakers, bristle-like filters, in the gills. Manta ray. Most rays live on the seabed, hunting fish and small animals. The huge manta ray, left, is different. It is an active fish that swims great distances, filtering plankton through its gills. Ocean wanderer. The whale shark is the largest fish in the world. It grows up to 43 feet, 13 meters, long and can weigh more than 22 tons, 20 tons. It is a filter feeder and, despite its size, it is not a dangerous shark. A whale shark's spots are unique and can be used to recognize each shark. Did you know? Scientists believe that some whale sharks may live for up to 180 years. Krill. Krill are among the most important animals in the ocean. There are billions of these small, shrimp-like animals. They are eaten by whales, seals, penguins, and seabirds. Living in numbers. Krill live in large groups called swarms. Up to 30,000 krill can be found in 35 cubic feet, 1 cubic meter, about 4 bathtubs, of water. The wriggling of the swarm confuses hunters. Krill. Penguin predator. Krill are an important food for penguins. Chinstrap penguins, right, feed on larger types of krill, while Adelie penguins prefer the smaller ones. Penguins, together with whales, seals, and other seabirds, eat about 150 to 300 million tons of krill each year. Raised on krill. Young leopard seals feed almost entirely on krill. As they get older, they eat larger fish. The adults are dangerous predators that hunt penguins, and even other seals. The leopard seal filters krill from the water through its large, jagged teeth. Squid. Squid swim through the water by pushing a jet of water out of their bodies. They catch krill using their long tentacles. Their sharp beaks rip the krill into small pieces for swallowing. Squid. Did you know? The ice krill, found in Antarctic waters, has been discovered living more than 13,000 feet, 4,000 meters, under ice. Seaweed. Seaweeds are found in shallow water close to the coast. They are not proper plants because they do not have leaves, stems, or roots, but they do make their own food. Holding on. Seaweeds have sticky knobs, called holdfasts. These grip to the rocks to prevent the seaweed from being washed away by the tides. Hold fast. Covering rocks. Many seaweeds are found on rocky shores. When they are covered by the tide, their leaf-like fronds float in the water. When the tide goes out, they are left piled up on the rocks until the tide returns. Types of seaweed. There are 3 main types of seaweed: green, brown, and red. Brown seaweed is the most common and is found on rocky beaches. Green seaweed is found only in shallow water. Oarweed, brown seaweed. Dead man's fingers, green seaweed. Bladder wrack, brown seaweed. Harvesting the seaweed. People harvest seaweed from the sea. It is eaten as a vegetable in Japan and other countries. Seaweeds are also used as an ingredient in skin cream, shampoo, nail polish, ice cream, beer, paint, and as a fertilizer for soil. Did you know? Seaweeds range in size from just a few inches to more than 200 feet, 60 meters, long. Kelp forests. Kelp are large, brown seaweeds that grow closely together. Kelp forests, with their fronds gently moving in the water, are magical places where many animals live. Thin leaves. Kelp have a stalk with long, thin leaves, called fronds, at the top. They are covered in a protective layer of mucus and feel tough, but are easily damaged in storms. A diver explores kelp forests off the coast of California. Dense growth. Kelp forests are found in shallow water, where they can get enough sunlight to make their food. At the surface, they form a thick, tangled mat. Floating plant. A kelp has a small, balloon-like float at the bottom of the fronds. The float is full of air to keep the fronds floating near the water's surface, where there is more sunlight. Kelp eater. Sea urchins eat kelp. In some places, there are too many sea urchins. They eat the young kelp before it has a chance to grow, so the forest disappears. Did you know? There are different types of kelp. The giant kelp is the fastest growing of all. The length of its fronds can increase by up to 2 feet, 60 centimeters, a day. Kelp forest animals. More than 800 types of animal have been found living in kelp forests. There are shoals of brightly colored fish, feeding limpets, lurking blue sharks, and giant rays. Forest hunter. The blue shark is a regular visitor to the kelp forest. It hides in the kelp waiting for prey, such as squid, to pass close by. Blue shark. Eagle ray. The eagle ray, below, has huge wing-like fins up to 6.5 feet, 2 meters, wide. It turns on its side to swim between the stalks of the kelp. Sea otter. Sea otters, right, feed on sea urchins and clams that they find in the kelp forests. Clams have hard shells, so otters collect stones, which they use to crack open the shells. They balance the stone on their stomach and hit the clam shell against it. Did you know? Sea otters sometimes wrap themselves in kelp. They use it as an anchor so that they do not drift away while they sleep. Garibaldi fish. The bright orange Garibaldi fish aggressively defends its nest site in the kelp from all, including divers. The male builds a nest in which the female lays her eggs. He then looks after the eggs until they hatch. Sea grass. There are underwater sea grass meadows along sheltered coasts. The sea grass shelters large numbers of fish and attracts animals, such as manatees and turtles. Underwater grass. Sea grass gets its name from its grass-like appearance, but it is not a real grass. It is a plant that can grow, rooted in sand, in shallow sea water. Manatee. The manatee, or sea cow, looks a little like a hippopotamus. It has paddle-like front legs to push itself through the water. It uses its large upper lip to graze the sea grass. An adult eats as much as 110 pounds, 50 kilograms, of grass a day. Seahorse. The seahorse swims upright in the water, using 3 small fins. It wraps its long tail around the sea grass so that it is not carried away on the currents. A seahorse's long snout acts like a vacuum cleaner, sucking up tiny shrimp. Did you know? Female seahorses lay their eggs inside a pouch in the male's belly. 4 weeks later, he gives birth to up to 1,000 baby seahorses. Lobster nursery. Sea grass meadows are nurseries for spiny lobsters. Adult lobsters come here to lay their eggs, which hatch into baby lobsters. When the lobsters are big enough, they move to nearby swamps and coral reefs. Seabirds. The rich harvest of fish in coastal waters attracts a wide variety of seabirds, including pelicans, gulls, gannets, and cormorants. Seabirds can often be seen swooping down to the water in search of fish to eat. Gannets. Gannets live in colonies on sea cliffs. They dive into the sea from a height of about 100 feet, 30 meters, and catch fish under the water using their pointed bills. Gannets have long, narrow wings. The wings measure almost 6.5 feet, 2 meters, from tip to tip. Did you know? There are about 50,000 pairs of gannets nesting on Base Rock, off the east coast of Scotland. Pelicans. White pelicans often fish in groups. Together, they chase fish into shallow water, where it is easier to catch them. The pelicans scoop up the fish into a pouch under their bill, and then toss them down their throat. Cormorants. A cormorant, left, can dive to depths of more than 130 feet, 40 meters, and then swim underwater using its large, webbed feet. Its hooked bill is perfect for gripping slippery fish. Following whales. Seabirds such as gulls, right, gather around whales as they feed near the surface of the ocean. Whales drive a lot of fish and krill to the surface of the water, where the birds can reach them. Baleen whales. Baleen whales are huge mammals that have comb-like plates hanging from the roof of their mouth. They use these baleen plates to filter plankton and small fish from the water. Baleen plates. A whale's baleen plates are made from keratin, like your fingernails are. The teeth of these plates are known as whale bones. Whale's baleen plate. Blowholes. A blowhole is a whale's nostril, found on top of its head. Whales cannot breathe underwater, so they have to take a deep breath before they dive. When they return to the surface, air is forced from their lungs through the blowhole, which sprays water into the air. Blue whale. Blue whale. At over 100 feet, 30 meters, long, the blue whale, right, is the world's largest animal. It eats about 7 tons, 8 tons, of krill a day. It feeds at depths of 330 feet, 100 meters, during the day. At night, it follows the krill, which move to the surface to feed. Did you know? The tongue of the blue whale is so large that 50 people could stand on it at the same time. Breaching. Whales sometimes leap out of the water and fall down with a big splash. This is called breaching. Scientists are unsure why they do this. It may be to signal to other whales, or it may be to remove parasites from their skin. Grooves in this humpback whale's throat allow the throat to expand to 4 times its usual size when it is feeding. Toothed whales. Orcas, pilot whales, dolphins, and porpoises are toothed whales. Toothed whales usually live together in small groups called pods. They are hunters that feed mostly on fish and squid. Arctic whales. The beluga whale, left, and narwhals live in the freezing waters of the Arctic Ocean. They have white skin, which is good camouflage against the ice. Sharp teeth. Most toothed whales have small, cone-shaped teeth, which are perfect for gripping slippery fish. Orcas, killer whales, have about 50 teeth, but dolphins can have up to 100 teeth. Dolphin or porpoise. Dolphins and porpoises look similar, but a dolphin has a pointed snout and a long, slim body. A porpoise has a rounded, fish-like snout and a shorter, rounder body. The dorsal fin on the back of a dolphin has a wave-like shape. A pair of dolphins. Did you know? A dolphin calf is born tail first. The calf stays with its mother for about a year. Hunting seals. Some orcas living off the coast of South America have learned to surf onto beaches to catch sea lions. The whales have to be careful not to become stranded on the beach. Coastal nurseries. Many animals visit coastal waters to breed or to have their young. These shallow waters are often sheltered, and there is plenty of food for the young animals. Hammerhead gathering. Each year, hammerhead sharks gather together in special breeding places. Each male selects a female, and they mate. After about 10 months, the female swims into shallow water to give birth to her pups. Hammerhead sharks gathering to breed. Laying eggs. Many squid live in shallow water close to rocks, caves, and sea grass. The female lays eggs with short stalks, which she attaches to rocks and seaweeds so that they do not get carried away by the tides. Squid eggs. Underwater flyer. Manta rays live in the deep sea but give birth in shallow coastal waters, where the young stay for several years. The females are pregnant for about a year before giving birth to 1 or 2 pups. Manta ray. Whale migration. Many whales make regular journeys along the world's coasts. Humpback whales spend the summer in cold waters, where there is plenty of food. They then migrate, or travel, to warmer, shallow water, where the females give birth. Did you know? The yearly migration of gray whales from Baja, California, to the Arctic and back is a distance of 12,500 miles, 20,000 kilometers, the longest journey made by any mammal. Coral reefs. Coral reefs are some of the most colorful places on the planet. They are found in shallow, tropical waters and are home to thousands of different creatures. Only the surface of the coral reef is living. Where in the world? Coral reefs are found in warm seas, where the water is shallow and there is plenty of light. Coral will grow only in clean water that is free from pollution. Reefs around the world. Most coral reefs are found in the Indian and Pacific Oceans, the Caribbean, and the Red Sea. Corals are not found where there are cold ocean currents or where large rivers flow into the sea. North America. Greenland. South America. Africa. Europe. Asia. Australia. Pacific Ocean. Atlantic Ocean. Indian Ocean. Arctic Ocean. Southern Ocean. Coral reefs. Bathed in sunlight. Corals need sunlight because they have tiny algae, called zooxanthellae, in their cells. These algae use the sunlight to make their own food. The algae also provide the corals with food and, in return, they get shelter and protection. Exposed coral. Some coral reefs close to the shore are exposed when the tide goes out. The exposed coral is then damaged by the sun and wind. Great Barrier Reef. The Great Barrier Reef is the world's largest coral reef. It runs along the northeast coast of Australia and is 1,500 miles, 2,500 kilometers, long. Almost 6,000 species of animals live on it. Did you know? The Great Barrier Reef is the largest structure made by living creatures on Earth. It is so large that it can be seen from space. Living reef. Coral reefs are built by hard corals, see pages 94 to 95. These are coral animals that leave behind stony skeletons when they die. Their skeletons create a habitat in which other animals can live. Tiny builders. Reefs are made by a group of tiny coral animals living together. Each tiny coral animal is called a polyp. A polyp, left, has a tube-like body and a ring of tentacles around its mouth. Polyps. Feather star. Feather stars, below, are related to starfish and live on the coral reef. They have a cup-shaped body and many feathery arms. The arms are covered in a sticky substance that traps small animals as they float by. Feather star. Living in crevices. Many animals, such as the moray eel, hide in the cracks and crevices on the reef. The moray eel darts out and grabs any small fish that swim too close. Sponges. Sponges are animals, but they do not move around. Some sponges grow to 6.5 feet, 2 meters, tall. Others form a flat, crust-like growth over the surface of the reef. Vase sponges. Did you know? There are more than 5,000 different types of sponge. Some of the largest may be hundreds of years old. Types of reef. There are 3 types of reef. A fringing reef is formed by corals that follow a coastline, while a barrier reef grows farther away from the land. An atoll is a circular reef around an area of shallow water, called a lagoon. How an atoll forms. Atolls take millions of years to form. Volcanoes create islands in the oceans. Then coral animals build reefs around the islands. Over a long time, the volcanic islands wear away but the reefs keep growing, leaving behind the atoll rings. Coral atoll. Coral reef grows. Volcanic island wears away. Coral reef forms. Lagoon. Volcanic island. Coral atolls. A coral atoll, above, protects the lagoon inside from the ocean waves. Most of the world's atolls are found in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Did you know? The largest atoll in the world is Kiribati, or Christmas Island, in the Indian Ocean. Around 1,500 people live on the atoll. They even have their own flag and postage stamps. New coral. Coral polyps like to grow on something hard. They will even make their home on the remains of sunken ship. New coral growing on a wrecked ship. Coral sand. Waves batter against the coral reef, and the reef gradually wears away. The tiny particles of reef are washed up on the shore as sand, eventually creating beautiful tropical beaches. A beach with fine coral sand. Hard corals. Hard corals are those with limestone skeletons. There are many different species of hard coral, each forming an interesting shape on the reef. Table coral. Table coral, below, is a fast-growing, spreading coral that forms a flat, table-like shape. It grows to several feet across and is made up of lots of short branches. Brain coral. Brain coral, above, gets its name from the way it looks like the folded surface of a real brain. These corals grow up to 6 feet, 1.8 meters, tall, and are strong enough to survive in rough seas. Mushroom coral. The mushroom coral, is round or oval in shape. It can be flat or domed and is about 20 inches, 50 centimeters, across. Most corals are made up of many polyps, but this type has just one large one. Black coral. Black corals, are found in deeper water, where there is less light. They are branching corals, which look a little like bushes with small branches. The skeleton is black but the polyps are white, yellow, or orange. Did you know? Black coral is in danger of dying out because too much has been collected to be made into jewelry. Soft corals. Soft corals come in a wide range of colors, such as red, yellow, orange, and purple. Soft corals are those that do not have a hard skeleton. Feeding corals. Coral polyps feed by extending their tentacles into the water to catch small animals. The tentacles are covered in stinging cells, which they use to kill their prey and to defend themselves. Yellow finger gorgonian coral. Underwater fans. Fan corals, above, form lovely fan shapes up to 10 feet, 3 meters, across, which move gently in the currents. Each fan has a flexible stem attaching it to the rocks. Whip coral. Whip corals, below, look a little like long drinking straws. They bend in the ocean currents, catching plankton to eat, but do not get damaged. Fire coral. Fire corals have a powerful sting. This protects the polyps from coral-eating fish. Fire corals are often found on the edge of the reef, and can survive in rough water. Did you know? Soft coral is known as a flower animal because of the many different shapes and colors it can take on. Living together. Animals live closely together on the reef. Some depend on others for a home, to stay clean, or for protection from predators. Living with stings. Anemones are covered in sting cells. Most animals stay away, but not the clownfish. It lives in the safety of the tentacles. It is covered with a slimy mucus that protects it from the stings. Clownfish. Living camouflage. The hermit crab protects its soft body by living inside an empty shell. Anemones have attached themselves to this hermit crab's shell, left. The anemones provide the crab with camouflage and protection and, in return, the crab helps the anemones to find food. Did you know? Decorator crabs attach sponges and seaweeds to their shell. These living decorations help to disguise the crab from predators. Cleaning station. Fish have difficulty removing the tiny parasites that live on their bodies, so they visit cleaning stations. Here, small fish and cleaner shrimp remove, and eat, the parasites for them. Kissing sturgeon. Wrasse. Wash and brush up. The moray eel, below, opens its mouth so that the cleaner shrimp can remove parasites from every nook and cranny. Eating coral. Coral is an important source of food for many reef animals, including turtles, starfish, snails, and a lot of fish. Fish with beaks. The parrotfish uses its large, beak-like teeth to bite off lumps of coral covered in algae, crunching them into small pieces. Much of the coral passes through its gut and ends up as sand on a beach. The parrotfish gets its name from the teeth at the front of its mouth, which look like a parrot's beak. Hawksbill turtle. This turtle, right, has a pointed beak. It is perfect for reaching into crevices on the reef to find sponges, which are its favorite food. Butterfly fish. Butterfly fish, above, have a flat body and a long, thin snout. They are the perfect shape to pick out small animals from inside coral crevices. Butterfly fish are brightly colored with beautiful patterns, just like butterflies. Reef devourer. The large crown of thorns starfish, right, has a huge appetite for coral. It has up to 18 arms and is covered with poisonous spines. At night, it crawls onto coral and empties its stomach contents. The digestive juices turn the coral into a liquid, which the starfish then sucks up. Did you know? In 1 year, a crown of thorns starfish can eat up to 140 square feet, 13 square meters, of coral. Hunters on the reef. The thousands of fish and small animals living on the reef attract a lot of predators. These include barracuda, octopuses, and lionfish. Barracuda. The barracuda, above, has powerful jaws, knife-like teeth, and a long body. It hangs without moving in the water, then darts forward to grab prey with a burst of speed. Did you know? Young barracudas live in large shoals consisting of thousands of fish. Lizard fish. The lizard fish sits on the reef propped up on its front fins with its head raised. It darts forward to catch prey, such as small fish. Lionfish. This is a dangerous fish, its spines are tipped with poison. Lionfish trap prey using their large, spiny fins, and then swallow it whole. Reef octopus. The reef octopus hides in holes with just its legs sticking out. It grabs its prey of fish or clams with its suckers and pulls it toward its mouth. The octopus then uses its powerful beak to crush its meal. Reef sharks. Sharks are among the most feared animals on the reef. Large reef sharks cruise along the reef edge looking for fish, while smaller sharks hunt shrimp and crabs among the corals. Underwater zebra. Adult zebra sharks, right, have spots, but when they are young they have stripes, just like a zebra. The downward-pointing mouth is designed to feed on clams from the seabed. They also hunt crabs and small fish. White-tipped reef shark. The white-tipped reef shark is brownish-gray in color, but has white tips on its fins. It rests during the day, and hunts for food at night in the crevices of the coral reef. A white-tipped reef shark resting under a coral ledge. Blacktip reef shark. Blacktip sharks are the top predators on the reef because they are not hunted by other animals. This shark hunts in shallow water and lagoons. It catches sea snakes as well as fish and octopuses. Blacktip reef shark. Did you know? There have been only 2 attacks ever recorded on scuba divers by blacktip reef sharks. Laying eggs. Some types of shark lay eggs. Each egg is protected inside a tough case. Curly threads fix the case to seaweed so that it is not swept away by the waves. The egg case of the dogfish shark, right, is called a mermaid's purse. Reef defense. Reef animals protect themselves from predators in different ways. Some use body armor or poisons to defend themselves. Others rely on camouflage to keep them hidden on the reef. Body armor. Seahorses use body armor to defend themselves. The tough armor gives them good protection, but makes swimming more difficult. They stay still much of the time, relying on their camouflage to hide them from hungry hunters. Hiding in coral. Corals make great hiding places for the creatures that live on them. Tiny animals, such as this small goby, hide from their predators on and among the coral branches. Frog camouflage. Frogfish, above, look more like a piece of coral or sponge than a fish. By keeping perfectly still, they blend in with the reef and are difficult for predators to spot. Spiny defense. The cowfish's spiky body armor, with long spines over each eye, gives it an unusual appearance. If the cowfish is attacked, it can also release a poison into the water from its skin. Did you know? The reef stonefish is one of the most poisonous fish in the world. It has 13 spines, which inject poison into anything that touches them. Out at night. The reef is active at night because many of the animals are nocturnal. They hide in caves and crevices during the day, then come out to feed in the safety of the dark. Cardinal fish. The female cardinal fish lays her eggs in the water, where they are fertilized by the male. The male then collects the eggs in his mouth and cares for them until they hatch. He releases the young fish in the safety of darkness. Cardinal fish. Did you know? Cardinal fish carry their eggs around in their mouth for 18 to 24 days before the young fish hatch. Nighttime crab. The arrow crab is a nighttime scavenger. It clambers over coral looking for the remains of animals that have died on the reef. The arrow crab has 8 spider-like legs and 2 legs that end in claws. Safety in numbers. Snappers, above, are seen at night swimming around in small groups. They hunt crabs, shrimp, worms, and fish that live on sandy seabeds near reefs. Squirrel fish. Squirrel fish have very large eyes. These fish hide in caves and wrecked ships by day, and come out at night to feed on plankton. Reef mollusks. Mollusks are a group of animals that include snails, clams, and squid. Most mollusks have a muscular foot, which they use to move around. Giant clam. The giant clam is a bivalve, a snail with 2 shells that are hinged together. Clams stay in one place on the reef, sucking water into their body and filtering out plankton. Their color comes from algae that live in their cells and provide the clams with food. Did you know? The largest giant clams grow to more than 3 feet, 1 meter, across, weigh more than 440 pounds, 200 kilograms, and can live for up to 100 years. Shell protection. A heavy shell, such as this helmet shell, protects the soft body of a snail. When threatened, the snail retreats into its shell. This is a spiral shell, but some are cone-shaped. Nudibranch. Nudibranchs are soft-bodied sea slugs that have no shell. Without a shell for protection, they use poison to protect themselves from predators. Nudibranchs are brightly colored to warn other animals that they are poisonous. Coming out to play. These flamingo-tongue snails, right, are coral eaters. As they crawl over the coral, their feet release digestive juices. The juices dissolve the polyps, and the snails absorb the nutrients through their feet. The shell of a tongue snail is white. The spots are on a thin layer that covers the shell. Open oceans. Stretching beyond the coastal water is the vast, open ocean. It covers thousands of miles and extends down for thousands of feet. The open ocean looks empty at first glance, but there are many different kinds of animal living beneath the surface. These range from tiny microscopic creatures to whales, the largest animals that have ever lived on the planet. Surface waters. The open oceans are home to fewer animals than coral reefs and coastal waters. Most animals that do live here are found in the surface layer, which is the top 655 feet, 200 meters. Light in the water. The ocean's surface is lit by sunlight. The top 100 feet, 30 meters, are brightly lit, but it gets darker deeper down. By 655 feet, 200 meters, all sunlight has gone and the water looks bluey black. Flying fish. The flying fish has an unusual way of escaping predators. When threatened, it swims straight at the surface of the water and flies into the air, using its fins like wings. It can glide above the surface for up to 330 feet, 100 meters. Humpback whales. Whales, such as these humpback whales, have to come to the surface of the ocean to breathe. Most whales swim near the surface and dive deeper only to find food. Surface waves. When the wind blows over the surface of the ocean, it creates waves. As the waves grow larger, they are moved along by the wind, and this helps to mix up the water. The wind pushes along wind-powered boats, such as this yacht. Did you know? During storms at sea, it is not unusual for waves to reach more than 100 feet, 30 meters, in height. That is as tall as a 10-story building. Floating life. The surface layer is home to many floating animals, both large and small. These are carried across the ocean by the currents and waves. Floating stings. The Portuguese man-of-war, left, looks like a jellyfish, see pages 118 to 19, but it is a colony of individual polyps called a siphonophore. One polyp floats above the surface to catch the wind, while others form hanging tentacles to trap food. Comb jellies. Comb jellies look like jellyfish without any tentacles. The body is just a few inches long. When comb jellies catch the light, they shimmer in rainbow colors. Siphonophores. Like all siphonophores, this deep water species, right, is formed from a colony of individuals, each with a different job to do. Its long, stinging tentacles dangle in the water to catch fish and shrimp. Did you know? The world's longest animal is a species of siphonophore. It can grow to more than 130 feet, 40 meters, long. Tiny squid. The larvae of squid and fish are found in the surface layer, where they drift in the currents. These tiny larvae hunt even smaller animals, such as copepods and amphipods. These squid larvae use their short tentacles to catch small animals. Jellyfish. Jellyfish are not actually fish. They are invertebrates with a jelly-like body, and are related to corals and sea anemones. Floating bells. Jellyfish have a soft, bell-shaped body with tentacles hanging beneath the bell. Each tentacle is covered in cells that can sting or kill other creatures. This jellyfish has tentacles covered in stinging cells. Underwater moons. Most jellyfish float in the water and are carried around by currents. Some can swim very slowly by squeezing water in and out of their bell, which looks a little like an umbrella opening and closing. Lion's mane. The largest jellyfish is the lion's mane. Its bell is more than 3 feet, 1 meter, across, and the tentacles are many feet long. They eat almost anything that bumps into their tentacles. Sea nettles. Sea nettles, below, are a small type of jellyfish. Each year, in some parts of the world, swarms of sea nettles gather to lay eggs. Sea nettles can sting, so people and marine animals stay away from these areas. Did you know? Each year, more people are killed by jellyfish than by the more feared great white shark. Shoals of fish. Many fish live together in groups called shoals. Some shoals contain just a few fish, but, when shoals join together, a huge shoal of hundreds of thousands of fish may form. Living in groups. Fish are safer in large groups. A shoal of fish confuses hunters by darting around in different directions. The fish use their senses to make sure that they do not bump into each other. A shoal of fish moves away from an approaching diver. Jumping to escape. When a group of dolphins finds a shoal, they surround it and then chase the fish. Some fish leap out of the water to try to escape. A shoal of mullet leaps out of the water to escape a dolphin. Big-eye jacks. These fish are powerful hunters with large eyes and a forked tail. They patrol the oceans in large shoals seeking out smaller fish, which they catch in their large jaws. Huge shoals. Sardines, right, form huge shoals. These attract hunters such as dolphins, sharks, and swordfish. Sardines are an important link in ocean food chains, see pages 26 to 27. Did you know? During the 1970s, enormous herring shoals of more than 3 billion fish were thought to exist in the North Atlantic Ocean. Catching fish. Fish are an important part of our diet. Each year, large fishing boats called trawlers catch millions of tons of fish. Trawling the seas. People living along the coast have always fished the seas. Over time, the size of the fishing boats and their nets have increased. Modern trawlers stay at sea for longer and use the latest equipment to find fish. This beam trawler has 2 nets. Each net is kept open by a bar, or beam. Nets of the beam trawler are lowered to the seabed. Various fish. Thousands of different types of fish are regularly caught around the world, but only about 20 types are fished in large quantities. These fish fall into 5 groups: cod, herring, jacks, mackerel, and redfish. Trawler nets. The type of net used by a trawler depends on the type of fish being caught. A beam trawler is used to catch fish on the seabed, and a purse seine, right, is used to catch a shoal of fish. Purse seining involves dropping a long net around the fish, then closing the net from the bottom, trapping the fish. Tuna are caught using a long line of hooks. Cod under threat. The cod is one of the most important fish in the Atlantic. An adult fish grows up to 55 inches, 1.4 meters, long and weighs up to 55 pounds, 25 kilograms. The cod's survival is under threat because it has been overfished, see pages 192 to 193. In some oceans it is classed as endangered. Did you know? There are about 4 million fishing boats in the world. Each year, they catch about 80 million tons, 90 million tons, of fish. Squid. Squid is an important link in the ocean food chain. It is a hunter of smaller animals, such as krill and fish, and is itself the prey of hunters such as swordfish and dolphins. Jet propulsion. To move along, a squid draws water into its body and then forces it out through a funnel on its belly. This creates a powerful jet of water that pushes the squid backward through the water. Large squid can move at 19 miles, 30 kilometers, per hour, faster than many ships can travel. Small suckers cover the underside of the tentacles. Tentacles. A squid has 8 arms and 2 tentacles. When it gets close to its prey, it shoots out its long tentacles to grab the animal and pull it into its mouth. This squid has caught a fish in its tentacles. Colorful messages. Squid can change the color of their skin. They can blend into the background or change color to confuse a predator. Their color reflects their mood, too. Angry squid are often red. This squid, left, is bioluminescent, it gives off an eerie glow in the dark. Large eye. Squid have large eyes that are very similar to human eyes, with a pupil and a lens. They rely on their sight to find prey. Did you know? Squid can die if they become stranded in shallow water. This often happens after they mate and lay their eggs. Ocean hunters. Large hunting fish such as sharks, swordfish, and marlin are at the top of the food chain. These fearsome fish are perfectly designed for hunting. Marlin. The marlin, right, is related to the tuna and swordfish. It is a large fish with a spear-like snout. It hunts alone, swimming in the surface waters of the ocean in search of fish and squid. The dorsal fin forms a crest along the back of the fish. Swordfish. The swordfish, above, is named after its long, sword-like snout. It does not spear its prey, but moves its sword from side to slice it up. It swims alone and is often seen leaping out of the water. Sailfish. These fish have a large, sail-like fin along their back. They use it to herd together groups of fish and squid, which are their prey. Sailfish can fold back the fin to create a sleek, streamlined shape for swimming. Did you know? Sailfish are the fastest swimming fish. They have an amazing top speed of 68 miles, 110 kilometers, per hour. Mako shark. The mako is a muscular fish with a tail fin shaped for speed. It can swim at up to 20 miles, 32 kilometers, an hour. It has sharp teeth, which it uses to grip slippery prey such as tuna and mackerel. Giant fish. Some creatures found in the oceans are huge. These include whales and fish such as basking sharks, disc-shaped sunfish, and winged manta rays. Manta ray. A manta ray, right, usually swims slowly through the ocean, but when threatened by hunters, such as sharks, it leaps out of the water in an attempt to escape. The wings of a manta ray can be up to 23 feet, 7 meters, wide. Ocean-going shark. The white-tipped shark grows to about 13 feet, 4 meters, long. It usually swims slowly just below the surface, but sometimes sticks its nose out of the water to sniff the air in search of food. Wahoo. The wahoo, above, can grow up to 5.5 feet, 1.7 meters, long. It is nicknamed the striped rocket because of the shape of its body, and its habit of leaping out of the water with its prey in its jaws. Sunfish. The sunfish has an unusual shape. It is almost circular when seen from the side, with fins sticking out of the top and bottom of its body. It can weigh more than 4,400 pounds, 2,000 kilograms. Sunfish feed mainly on jellyfish. Did you know? The average length of a sunfish is 6 feet, 1.8 meters, but some have been found that are 10 feet, 3.2 meters, long. Ocean turtles. Many turtles make long journeys across the oceans in search of food. They return to the beach where they were born to lay their eggs. Growing up. Turtles spend the first few years of their life in the open ocean. They feed on jellyfish and other animals there, before returning to coastal waters to mate. Turtles have flat flippers to help them swim. Green turtle. Green turtles. Green turtles are expert swimmers with a smooth, streamlined shell. They are the largest hard-shelled turtle in the ocean. They grow up to 3 feet, 1 meter, across, and can weigh 440 pounds, 200 kilograms, or more. Baby green turtles eat sea grass, but the adults are meat eaters. Did you know? Some green turtles feed off the coast of Brazil and swim across the Atlantic to breed on Ascension Island, a round journey of about 2,800 miles, 4,500 kilometers. Hawksbill turtles. This rare turtle gets its name from the bird-like shape of its head. It spends up to 20 years at sea before it is ready to breed. Sadly, it is killed for its attractive shell, which is used to make jewelry and ornaments. Toothless turtles. All turtles are toothless. Instead of teeth they use their beak to crush coral and crabs, or graze on sea grass. Their head, like the rest of their body, is covered with small scales. Toothless beak of a hawksbill turtle. Dolphins. The dolphin is one of the most intelligent animals in the ocean. This playful marine mammal uses sound to find its prey and lives in groups. Leaping dolphins. The acrobatic dolphin moves its powerful tail up and down to build up enough speed to jump out of the water. Dolphins often leap into the air while chasing fish to eat. The bottlenose dolphin can spin in the air before landing back in the water. Hunting with sound. Dolphins use sound to find their prey. This is called echolocation. They make whistling and clicking sounds, which travel through the water. These sounds bounce off any prey in the water, creating echoes that the dolphins can hear. Sound waves made by dolphin. Echoes tell the dolphin the shape, size, and location of its prey. Looking after baby. A female dolphin gives birth to her calf, or baby, under the water. The mother pushes her calf to the surface so it can take its first breath. The calf feeds on its mother's milk for about a year. Living together. Dolphins live together in groups called pods. A pod usually contains 10 to 12 dolphins, but superpods of thousands of dolphins are formed when pods join up. Did you know? Dolphins do not sleep because they have to come to the surface to breathe, but they do rest at the water's surface for a few minutes at a time. Sargasso Sea. The Sargasso Sea is a huge area of floating seaweed in the North Atlantic Ocean. It is home to many animals, some stay all year, but others are just visitors. Sargassum weed. Thick mats of sargassum weed cover much of the Sargasso Sea. Turtles and fish hide among the mats, while crabs and small shrimp cling to the weed. Small air sacs keep the sargassum weed afloat. In the mid-Atlantic, the Sargasso Sea covers an area of about 1 million square miles, 3 million square kilometers. It is an area of water with slow currents surrounded by a boundary of fast-moving currents. North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Atlantic Ocean, Sargasso Sea. Seaweed nurseries. The Sargasso Sea is a nursery for many fish. The young of the gray triggerfish, above, drift in the sargassum weed until they reach about 6 inches, 15 centimeters, long. Then they swim to coastal reefs. Growing eels. Adult eels swim to the Sargasso Sea to lay their eggs. The young eels hatch, then slowly make their journey back to North America and Europe, where they swim up rivers to breed. Young eels. Did you know? The vast Sargasso Sea is the only sea in the world that does not have a coastline. Instead, it is bordered by fast-moving water. Moving up and down. During the day, the brightly lit surface waters are virtually empty of small animals. Many dive to the safety of the darker water below. At night, it is very different, they all return to feed under the cover of darkness. Nighttime travelers. This daily movement is only a few hundred feet, but for tiny animals, such as shrimp, left, and copepods, it is a long journey. It is the only way to feed in safety. Mass migration. During the day, most animals living in the open oceans are found at depths of 165 to 3,300 feet, 50 to 1,000 meters. At sunset, they swim back to the surface waters. This is one of the largest mass movements of animals in the world. Migrating animals include krill, herring, and mackerel. At night, the animals feed on plankton. At sunrise, the animals swim back down to the dark water. Lanternfish. Lanternfish travel the greatest distances each day. During daylight, they are found more than 5,600 feet, 1,700 meters, down, and at night they rise to within 330 feet, 100 meters, of the surface. Did you know? Lanternfish get their name from the rows of glowing lights along their body. These lights are bioluminescent organs called photophores. Bluefin tuna. The tuna preys on smaller fish, which it swallows whole. It follows its prey on their migration to the deeper water. The deep ocean. People have explored the land and the surface of the oceans, but the deep ocean is still mysterious. This dark, cold place is the world's largest habitat, but few people have ventured into it. The deep ocean is a difficult place for animals to live in, and for humans to visit. Going down. As you descend from the surface, the sea becomes darker and colder. The pressure increases, too. In very deep water, a diver would be crushed and all the air squeezed from his or her lungs. Only animals adapted to this environment can survive. Ocean layers. The surface layer extends to 660 feet, 200 meters. Next comes the twilight zone, from 660 to 3,300 feet, 200 to 1,000 meters. The dark zone reaches down to the seabed. Surface layer. Twilight zone, up to 3,300 feet, 1,000 meters, deep. Dark zone, below 3,300 feet, 1,000 meters, deep. Sunlit zone. Sunlight passes through the water to about 660 feet, 200 meters, deep. Here, in the surface layer, there is enough light for plant plankton and seaweeds to make their food. Dolphins spend most of their time in the sunny surface layers. Twilight zone. Beneath the surface layer there is a glimmer of light, just enough for some animals to see. Visiting animals dive down into this layer for safety. The sperm whale is an expert diver. It spends hours in the dark zone searching for food. Did you know? Female sperm whales live in pods, or groups, with their young. Male sperm whales leave the group when they are a few years old to join a group of males. Dark zone. The dark zone is pitch black and cold, and the water is still. Fish and other sea creatures living at these depths are designed to cope with the great pressure of the water. Brittle stars are found crawling over the seabed. Twilight zone. A variety of animals, from tiny plankton to huge whales, live in the twilight zone. Their bodies are specially adapted for life in deep, gloomy water. Nautilus. The nautilus is a relative of the squid. It has a spiral shell for protection and, if necessary, it can pull itself right inside. Its large eyes help it to see in the gloom. The nautilus has many more tentacles than a squid, but no suckers. Hatchet fish. A hatchet fish, above, has a flat body. It has light-producing organs on its underside. The lights disguise the fish's shape so it is not spotted by predators in the water below. Twilight shrimp. The twilight shrimp, right, has a red shell, a color that is difficult to spot in the gloom. It catches small plankton animals in its claws. Fangs in the dark. There is not much food in the twilight zone, so fish make sure that any prey they catch cannot escape. Fish such as this fangtooth have dagger-like teeth that point backward. This prevents their prey from wriggling out of their mouth. Did you know? Animals of the twilight zone are not used to any boundaries, such as the surface of the ocean or the seabed. It is cruel to keep them in an aquarium where they cannot move freely because they tend to bang against the glass. Diving deep. Seals, whales, sharks, and penguins are just some of the animals that dive down into the twilight zone and beyond to find food. Twilight hunter. The sperm whale dives down to 3,300 feet, 1,000 meters, or more in search of squid. Scientists believe that the whale produces sound waves to stun its prey. A sperm whale wrestling with its prey of giant squid. Diving birds. Many seabirds, such as the penguin, dive underwater to catch food. The penguin is a flightless bird with flippers instead of wings. It is clumsy on land, but an expert swimmer. The emperor penguin spends up to 15 minutes under the water at a time. It dives to depths of around 1,600 feet, 500 meters. Weddell seals. The Weddell seal dives at night to find krill, squid, and fish. It can stay under the water for up to an hour, reaching depths of about 2,300 feet, 700 meters, before it has to return to the surface to breathe. Megamouth. The odd-looking megamouth shark grows to about 23 feet, 7 meters. It has a 3-foot, 1 meter, wide mouth and a flabby body. Like many ocean animals, it spends the daylight hours in deep water and swims to the surface to feed at night. Did you know? Little is known about the megamouth shark, which was first discovered near Hawaii in 1976. Since then, only about 40 megamouths have been seen. The deep. The deep is a cold, eerie place where very little lives. The animals of the deep have all sorts of unusual features, which help them get something to eat in this food desert. Snipe eel. The snipe eel has jaws that do not close. It swims with its mouth open, and small animals such as amphipods, shrimp-like creatures, are trapped on the teeth and swallowed. The snipe eel grows to over 3 feet, 1 meter, long. The snipe eel has a row of small backward-facing teeth along its jaws. Deep-sea medusa. The deep-sea medusa, right, is a relative of the jellyfish. It traps prey, such as small shrimp and baby fish, in its long, stinging tentacles. Big mouth. Many deep-sea fish are all mouth and stomach. The gulper eel has a wide mouth and a very stretchy stomach. It can swallow prey as large as itself. The gulper eel has a loosely hinged jaw, which can open very wide. Fishing the deep. The anglerfish lures its prey with a light that dangles from the end of a spine in front of its large mouth. The light is produced by tiny bacteria. Did you know? It is believed that the phronema, a tiny amphipod, was the model for the monster in the science fiction film Alien. Deep-sea squid. Many stories have been written about monsters of the deep. One of the most mysterious is the giant squid. These huge animals are very rare, and few have been seen alive. Rare sightings. Sometimes, the bodies of giant squid, above, are washed up on beaches. This gives scientists the chance to study them. Their remains have also been found in the stomachs of sperm whales. Historical monster. Many stories have been written about giant squid. In these tales, it is said that they have risen from the deep and wrapped their tentacles around boats to pull them down under the water. Light in the dark. Many giant squid, below, can produce their own light. They switch this light on and off to attract fish. When the fish are close enough, the squid grab on them. This deep-sea squid, called Toothowenia, produces its own light to attract prey. Colossal squid. The colossal squid is even larger than the giant squid. It is the world's largest invertebrate animal, reaching a massive 46 feet, 14 meters, in length. Its tentacles have razor-like hooks, which can cause injuries to other animals. Did you know? The colossal squid has the largest eyes of any animal. Each eye measures up to about 10 inches, 25 centimeters, across. Life on the seabed. Some of the deep seabed is rocky, but it is mostly covered by a thick layer of mud. This mud contains the remains of dead animals that have sunk from the water above. Deep-sea spines. The round sea urchin is covered in long spines. Its mouth is on the underside, surrounded by 5 teeth-like plates. It uses these plates to feed on dead matter and animals such as mussels and sponges. The sea urchin can move each of its spines. Sea pens. Sea pens, above, are related to corals. Each sea pen is really a colony of individual polyps that live together. The sea pen attaches to the deep seabed, where it catches small animals with its stinging tentacles. Sea slug. The sea slug, above, is a mollusk with a tube-shaped body, leathery skin, and a ring of sticky tentacles around its mouth. It uses its tentacles to find food in the mud. Long-legged crabs. Spider crabs scuttle across the deep seabed in search of food. They have a small body and 10 very long legs. They cannot see anything in the dark, so they use their sense of touch to catch prey. Spider crabs use their claws to feel for food in the mud. Did you know? The Japanese spider crab is the largest of all spider crabs. It measures up to 13 feet, 4 meters, across and weighs about 2,000 pounds, 920 kilograms. All kinds of worms. Worms are invertebrate animals with a long, soft boneless body. There are all kinds of deep-sea marine worms, including fan worms and tapeworms. Spaghetti worm. The tentacles of this deep-sea worm, right, look a little like spaghetti. The worm extends these sticky tentacles over the seabed to catch any small particles that sink down from above. Undersea parasites. Parasites are animals that live in, and do harm to, other animals. The tapeworm is a common parasite in many deep-sea fish. It lives and feeds in the fish's gut. Eventually, the fish starves to death. Tapeworms use their hooks and suckers to grip to the inside of the gut. Sucker. Hook. New discovery. Scientists have discovered some new types of worm living on the deep seabed. These include a type of fan worm, left, that feeds only on the bones of dead whales. Catching food. Fan worms are found on the deep seabed. Their soft body is protected by a hard, bony tube. They extend a ring of sticky tentacles from the top of the tube to catch small animals drifting in the water. If disturbed, fan worms can shoot back inside their tube. Did you know? More than 400 different species, or types, of animal, including many worms, feed on the bodies of dead whales on the seabed. Food and shelter. When the body of a large animal drops to the seabed, scavengers come from far and wide to feed upon it. Others find shelter among anything that finds its way to the seabed. Finding shelter. Animals on the seabed need shelter from predators. Many hide among bones, or even old cans, below, and other garbage that has sunk to the seabed. Food from above. There is a constant supply of marine snow from the waters above. This snow is the broken down remains of dead plants and animals, especially plankton. These remains sink slowly to the seabed. Ocean floor scavenger. The hagfish, above, looks a little like an eel. It is a scavenger that burrows into the bodies of dead animals, and eats them from the inside out. It is an unusual fish because it does not have jaws or teeth. Instead, it has a very rough tongue. Did you know? The hagfish is also called the slime eel because of the large amounts of sticky slime it produces as protection. It rids itself of excess slime by tying itself into a knot and then sliding out of it. It sneezes to clear its nostrils. Brittle star. The brittle star, right, has 5 long arms, which it uses to pull itself across the seabed. It sometimes preys on small shrimp and other animals, but mostly scavenges on dead matter. Starfish. Starfish are spiny-skinned creatures that belong to a group of animals called echinoderms. They are related to sea urchins, sea cucumbers, sea stars, and brittle stars. All arms and legs. Most starfish and sun stars have 5 or more arms, called rays, which are joined to a central body. The mouth is on the underside. Starfish pour acid from their stomach onto their food. The acid dissolves the food so the starfish can digest it. There are hundreds of tube feet on the underside of each ray. The spiny skin gives protection from predators. Starfish. Sun star. Tube feet. To move, a starfish swings each ray forward then pushes down, pulling itself along. There is a tiny sucker at the end of each ray, to grip. The starfish also uses the sucker to force open the shells of mussels and clams. Spare parts. If a starfish loses one of its rays, it can grow a new one. This process is called regeneration. This starfish, below, is regrowing 2 of its rays. Sea lilies. Sea lilies, or feather stars, are related to starfish. They have a central mouth surrounded by arms. Some sea lilies attach to the seabed by a stalk, but others can swim. Mouth. Did you know? Sea lilies have survived, almost unchanged, for millions of years. Fossilized sea lilies have been found that are up to 130 feet, 40 meters, wide. Seabed fish. A surprising number of fish are found on the deep seabed, and more are being discovered all the time. They have been given unusual names, such as the rat tail, cookie cutter, and even the blobfish. Deep-sea blob. The blobfish, below, was discovered in 2003, on a seabed 3,900 feet, 1,200 meters, deep. Little is known about it, but the shape of its mouth suggests that it eats whatever it can find. Six-gill shark. The six-gill shark, above right, is found at depths of up to 10,000 feet, 3,000 meters, where it rests during the day. At night, it swims to the surface to hunt for fish and seals. Most sharks have 5 gill slits, but this shark has 6 gill slits. Cookie cutter shark. This shark gets its name from the round scars that it leaves on its prey. It grips its prey in its mouth and, using its long teeth, pulls out a lump of flesh, leaving behind a nasty hole. Did you know? The cookie cutter shark has a dark patch on its belly. This fools hunting fish into thinking it is a small fish. It waits for them to attack, and then it turns on them. Deep-sea rat tail. The rat tail, or grenadier, is one of the most common deep-sea fish. It has a large head and a slender body and, unusually, no tail fin. These fish live in water up to 16,000 feet, 5,000 meters, deep, and hunt animals, such as smaller fish and shrimp. Deep ocean cliffs. There are cliffs, mountains, and trenches in the deep ocean. These are home to many animals, including corals and sponges. Cliff hugger. Sea anemones, and other animals that cannot swim, cling tightly to the cliffs. If they let go, they could sink into the deep below. A deep-sea crab hides underneath an anemone on a sea cliff. Deep-sea sponges. Some deep-water sponges have a skeleton that is made from glass. They produce tiny pieces of glass, which stick together to form a beautiful skeleton that is strong enough to support their body. Deep-sea glass sponge. Glass skeleton. Deep-sea coral. More corals live in cold, deep water than on shallow coral reefs. Some live 3,300 feet, 1,000 meters, deep. Deep-sea reefs grow slowly, and some are hundreds of years old. Did you know? One deep-sea coral reef at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean is home to more than 1,300 different types of animal. Hiding in cracks. The wolffish, or sea wolf, pushes its body backward into the cracks of a cliff. It leaves just its head sticking out, watching for prey. It has a wide mouth with large, pointed teeth, which it uses to feed on clams, mussels, and starfish. Strange new life. In 1976, scientists made an exciting discovery while exploring the deep. They found strange animals, never seen before, clustered around jets of hot water coming out of cracks in the seabed. Deep-sea smokers. The jets of water are often nicknamed black smokers. The temperature of the water reaches 750 degrees Fahrenheit, 400 degrees Celsius. A chimney builds up around the jet, formed from minerals in the hot water. A chimney can reach 200 feet, 60 meters, tall, and can grow up to 1 foot, 30 centimeters, a day. Jet of black water. Black smoker. Tube worms. Mussels. Tube shrimp. Each chimney is home to a single type of shrimp. The shrimp feed on bacteria, and in turn are eaten by crabs and fish. Did you know? In the Atlantic Ocean, massive swarms containing up to 30,000 shrimp per square yard have been found near or on black smokers. Tube shellfish. Mussel larvae are often the first animals to settle beside a smoker chimney. The mussels move by sending out a sticky thread, which attaches to the rocks, and they pull themselves along. Deep-sea mussel. Giant tube worms. Giant tube worms can grow to more than 6.5 feet, 2 meters, in length. They do not have a mouth, so cannot feed. Their food comes from bacteria that live inside them. Polar waters. Animals living in the polar regions have to cope with some of the toughest conditions on the planet. The Arctic Ocean surrounds the North Pole. At the South Pole, the continent of Antarctica is covered by a thick sheet of ice. The Southern Ocean surrounds Antarctica, and is also covered by ice for much of the year. Polar climate. The poles have winters of freezing temperatures, high winds, and darkness. In summer, temperatures rise, and it stays light all day and all night. Blizzard conditions. Strong polar winds blow snow into the air, creating blizzards. This makes it difficult for animals to move around. Emperor penguins huddle together for shelter. A colony of emperor penguins in a blizzard in Antarctica. Ice caps. These maps, left, show the area that is covered by ice all year round. In winter, the areas of ice are even larger. Antarctica. Arctic. Midnight sun. At midnight during the polar summer the sun does not set. There is enough light to see 24 hours a day. In the winter, the sun does not rise, so it is dark all the time. This series of photographs of the Arctic summer sun was taken during the night. It shows that the sun never sinks below the horizon. Lights in the sky. During spring and fall, strange lights of red, blue, and green appear in the polar skies. This display is called the aurora borealis in the Arctic. In the Antarctic it is the aurora australis. Did you know? At the North and South poles there is only one full sunrise, where the whole sun can be seen, and one full sunset, where the whole sun disappears, each year. Sea ice. The surfaces of the polar oceans are covered by ice during the winter. As temperatures fall, the sea water freezes, forming a thick layer of ice called an ice sheet. Sheets of ice. Fresh water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius, but the salt water of the polar oceans freezes at 28.5 degrees Fahrenheit, -2 degrees Celsius. The thick sheet of ice formed at the surface is not flat. Strong winds push the sheets of ice together to form ridges. Life under the ice. Sea ice forms a protective layer, beneath which live many animals. These include Arctic cod and smaller animals, such as krill and copepods. These animals attract hungry predators, such as seals, Above. Growing on ice. Sea ice is not solid like a block of ice. It is crisscrossed with small channels filled with salty water. Tiny living things, such as algae, bacteria, and copepods live in these channels. Sometimes there are so many red algae that the ice looks red. Breaking up ice. In spring, when temperatures rise, the ice sheet breaks up into large chunks called floes. These get smaller and smaller as they are moved around by the ocean currents. Many polar animals, such as seals and penguins, pull themselves out of the water onto the sea ice to rest. Did you know? The Arctic is the least salty ocean in the world. This is because the lack of warm sunshine means that less water evaporates than elsewhere. Icebergs. Icebergs are huge, floating lumps of ice that have broken off ice sheets. They are carried across oceans by winds and currents. Under the water. Only about 1/8 of an iceberg sticks up above the water, The rest is hidden under the water. Icebergs are a danger to ships because sailors cannot see the massive lumps of ice lurking beneath the surface. Massive icebergs. In 2005, a huge iceberg broke off the Antarctic ice sheet. It was 75 miles, 120 kilometers, long, the largest floating object in the world. It is now blocking the way to the ocean for penguins. This is a problem for the penguins because they have to walk farther over the ice to reach the water to feed. The large iceberg is stuck across a bay. Ocean. Ice islands. Icebergs look clean and white, but they are often covered with a layer of dirt. They can contain rocks, soil, and parts of plants. Each year, as many as 40,000 icebergs break off ice sheets in the Arctic. Most drift south into the Atlantic Ocean, where they slowly melt. Sunk by an iceberg. On April 14, 1912, a ship called the Titanic sank after hitting a huge iceberg in the Atlantic Ocean. The Titanic was on its first voyage and was the world's largest ship at the time. Of its passengers, 1,500 people died and 700 were rescued by other ships. An iceberg tore a hole in the Titanic. The wreck of the Titanic was discovered in 1985. Did you know? It takes an iceberg 2 to 3 years to drift from the Greenland ice cap, between the Arctic and Atlantic Oceans, to the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. So many icebergs drift along this coast that the area is called Iceberg Alley. Living on ice. Animals that live at the poles are adapted to cope with the cold, wind, and snow. These include polar bears, Arctic foxes, and walruses. Prowling the ice. The biggest hunters on the ice are the polar bears, Their long claws and furry feet help them to grip the slippery Arctic surface. Polar scavenger. Arctic foxes are scavengers, so they eat almost anything they find on the ice. They also hunt small animals. When Arctic foxes hear small rodents, such as voles or lemmings, under the snow, they pounce on them from above. They often bury food to eat later. The pads of the Arctic fox's feet are covered with thick fur. Thick insulation. Most polar animals, such as the walrus, have a thick layer of fat under their skin to keep them warm. Walruses need the insulation for swimming in the icy water of the Arctic. Walruses have 2 tusks, which are extra long teeth. Did you know? If a walrus gets too hot, it turns pink. This is because its blood flows closer to the surface of its skin to lose heat. This helps to cool the walrus down. Giving birth on ice. Seals spend much of their life in water hunting for food. Female seals move onto the ice each year to give birth to their young, called pups. Under the ice. The polar ice spreads over much of the Arctic and southern oceans. Many animals spend their lives under the ice. Southern fish. Ice fish live in the deep, cold waters around Antarctica, where they feed on krill and plankton. They grow slowly and live for up to 20 years. Ice fish are caught to be eaten but, sadly, too many have been taken from the ocean and they are now rare. The ice fish is so called because it looks as though it is made of ice. Did you know? Ice fish live in such cold water that they have a special chemical in their blood to stop water from freezing in their body. Sea butterfly. The sea butterfly, above, is a type of mollusk without a shell. It has 2 wings, or flaps, attached to its body, which it uses to move through the water. It feeds on copepods and plankton. Arctic jellyfish. Scientists exploring under the ice have discovered new forms of marine life, including Arctic jellyfish. These large jellyfish feed on plankton and small fish. This Arctic jellyfish has long tentacles, which can extend up to 20 feet, 6 meters. Arctic cod. Arctic cod like icy water, and are not often seen in warmer water. They grow to 1 foot, 30 centimeters, long, and are the favorite food of narwhals and other Arctic whales. Penguins. Penguins are birds that do not fly. They are found mostly in the Antarctic and the surrounding islands of the Southern Ocean, where they spend many months at sea. Graceful swimmers. Penguins are good swimmers, with a sleek, streamlined body. They use their paddle-like wings to push through the water. They press their feet against their tail, which they use to steer. Penguin colonies. Each year, penguins come together to breed. Like seals, they gather in colonies. These groups vary in size from a few hundred breeding pairs to hundreds of thousands of birds. A colony of emperor penguins. Leaping penguins. Penguins waddle and slide across the ice to the sea before leaping into the water. If they are chased by predators in the water, they swim quickly then leap back onto the safety of the ice. Bringing up baby. Both parents look after a chick, taking it in turns to walk to the sea to catch fish. The parent bird stores fish in its stomach, and brings it back up into its mouth to feed the chick. A chinstrap penguin feeding a chick. Did you know? Emperor penguins are the fastest penguin swimmers. They can swim at speeds of more than 9 miles, 14 kilometers, per hour. Seals. Seals are built to live in polar waters. They have a streamlined body, flippers to help them swim, and a thick layer of fat, called blubber, to keep them warm. Crab-eater seals. There are more crab-eater seals, right, in the world than any other seal. There may be as many as 50 million. Despite their name, they do not eat crabs, they feed on krill. Their main predators are leopard seals. Seal pups. Seal pups are born on the ice. They feed on their mother's milk, which is high in fat, so that they grow very quickly. A harp seal pup can gain as much as 4.5 pounds, 2 kilograms, in weight each day. The white fur of this harp seal pup will change to gray within a few weeks. Walruses. Walruses are easily recognized by their 2 long tusks. They are noisy animals, making a wide range of sounds, such as growls, barks, grunts, and clicks, both when they are under the water and above it. Coming up for air. Ringed seals, left, can stay under the water for up to 30 minutes, but they have to come to the surface to breathe. When the water starts to freeze over, the seals make breathing holes in the ice, which they keep open throughout the winter. Did you know? Hungry polar bears sit next to breathing holes in the ice, waiting for a seal to pop out its head. Polar whales. Most whales, including the humpback, visit polar waters only to feed. But some whales, such as belugas, spend all year in the chilly Arctic. White whale. The beluga, left, is a white whale found in the Arctic. It is very noisy and talks to other belugas using a range of sounds, including whistles and squeaks. Polar unicorns. Male narwhals have an unusual spiral tusk. The tusk is actually a very long tooth. These whales, right, are rubbing their tusks together. This is not aggression, but a way of communicating with each other. Looking for prey. The massive killer whale, or orca, below, hunts in polar waters, feeding on animals such as fish, squid, penguins, and seals. Orcas often hunt together. When they see penguins or seals resting on a small ice floe, one orca tips over the ice while the others wait to catch the prey. The orca is easy to recognize by its black and white markings. Trapped by ice. In winter, ice extends quickly over the water and whales that are feeding in bays or between large floes can get trapped. They die if they're breathing holes in the ice close up. Did you know? In 1978, 5 humpback whales and 1 narwhal were trapped by ice in a bay in Newfoundland, Canada. For 2 months, people kept breathing holes open for the whales until the ice melted and they could escape. Polar bears. Polar bears are the largest hunters of the Arctic. Their white fur is good camouflage against the white snow. Their excellent senses help them to find prey on the ice. Polar hunter. Polar bears are at the top of the Arctic food chains. They have few enemies other than people. They feed mainly on seals, but also eat birds, fish, and mammals. Champion swimmer. Polar bears are strong swimmers and can swim huge distances. They often have to swim between ice floes as the ice starts to break up in spring. Polar bears paddle with their front paws and steer with their hind legs. Scavenging. A dead whale washed up on a beach provides a feast for polar bears. Polar bears live alone, but large numbers will gather each day to feed on a dead whale. Polar cubs. Female polar bears usually give birth to 2 cubs. In winter, the mother lives in a den under the ice and snow, where her cubs are born. In the spring, mother and cubs emerge to find food. Did you know? Polar bears travel as far as 12 miles, 20 kilometers, each day in search of food. One bear has been recorded traveling 745 miles, 1,200 kilometers, in a year. Albatrosses. Albatrosses spend much of their lives at sea, gliding over the Southern and Pacific Oceans in search of fish. Gliding over the waves. The long wings of the albatross are the perfect shape for catching the wind and gliding. Albatrosses cover huge distances, some types fly more than 620 miles, 1,000 kilometers, in just one day. The wandering albatross has the largest wingspan of any bird, reaching to 11.5 feet, 3.5 meters. Each wing is almost as long as an adult human being is tall. Polar nests. Most albatrosses breed once every 2 years. They return to land to nest on rocky cliffs and coastal slopes. The females lay a single egg, which hatches several months later. Albatross chicks. Both parents care for the albatross chick, feeding it with fish and squid for up to 7 months. An albatross is ready to breed when it is about 10 years old, and lives up to 60 years. Hook bill. An albatross's bill is up to 7 inches, 18 centimeters, long, with a hook at the end. The bird swoops down to the surface of the water and catches slippery fish and squid in its large bill. Did you know? There are 21 different species of albatross. Sadly, many species are dying out because albatrosses drown if they get caught on the hooks of fishing lines. Summer visitors. Arctic winters are harsh, but long summer days attract a lot of animals. Birds spend the summer here feeding and raising their young. In fall, they fly away to warmer places. Speedy flyers. Arctic terns fly farther than any other birds. They spend half of the year in the Arctic, where they lay their eggs and raise young. The parent birds and all their young then fly south to the Antarctic for rest of the year. Arctic tern. Did you know? Arctic terns live for about 20 years and will fly about 500,000 miles, 800,000 kilometers, in their lifetime. That is farther than flying to the moon and back. Greylag geese. Greylag geese, left, are large geese with gray-brown feathers and pink legs. They are so called because they lag behind other birds and are often the last geese to fly north in spring. Snow geese. Flocks of snow geese, above, fly north each spring. They leave their winter feeding grounds in the United States to return to the Arctic. Snow geese are white with black wing tips. Whooper swans. Whooper swans breed in northern Europe and Iceland. Individual birds can be identified from the black markings on the bill, because each bird has different markings. Whooper swan. Living and working at the poles. Some people have lived in the Arctic for many generations and others, such as scientists, have moved there to work. The only people who live in the Antarctic are scientists. Surviving on ice. Hunters spend many weeks on the Arctic ice hunting for food. They build a domed shelter, called an igloo, above, from blocks of ice. It is warm inside the igloo, because the ice traps a person's body heat. Traditional life. In the past, native people such as the Inuit, left, relied on the sea for their food and on animal skins to make their clothes. They cut up and dried fish so it could be eaten all winter when it was not possible to fish in the frozen sea. Polar fishing. The polar waters are full of fish. Throughout the summer months, when the ice melts, many fishing boats sail into the region. They catch fish, squid, and shellfish such as crabs and shrimp. Studying polar life. Many scientists are based in the Arctic and Antarctic, studying the animals and the polar environment. These scientists, have caught and tagged a Weddell seal so they can track its movements. Did you know? About 4,000 scientists live in the Antarctic during the summer. However, fewer than 1,000 spend the long, cold winter there. Oceans in danger. People use the oceans to transport goods around the world, as a source of food, and even as a dumping ground for all kinds of waste. Sadly, people are damaging the world's oceans. This damage is caused by overfishing, pollution, and global warming. Overfishing. Fish is an important source of food for many people. As the world's population grows, more fish, squid, shrimp, and other seafoods are being caught. Hauling in the nets. Trawlers drag huge nets that can catch tons of fish at a time. Purse seine nets are designed to trap whole shoals. Long lines of hooks catch thousands of fish at the surface or on the seabed. Overfishing using trawlers such as this disrupts ocean food chains. They do not leave behind enough fish for marine animals to eat. Did you know? Fishing nets that are dragged along the seabed cause a lot of damage to deep-sea coral reefs and other marine habitats. Fishing fleet. These fishing boats, called trawlers, use modern equipment to find shoals of fish. However, large trawlers use a lot of energy. It takes twice as much fuel to catch a ton of fish as it did 20 years ago. This is because fish stocks are lower, and boats have to travel farther to find them. Fish sticks. Some fish are processed on board. The fish are cleaned, gutted, and boned, leaving a piece of fish meat called a fillet. This can be sold as fresh fish, or made into processed foods such as fish sticks. Catching sharks. Sharks are caught for their meat and fins, which are used in shark fin soup. Often, the fins are cut off and the sharks are thrown back into the water, where they die. Sharks grow slowly and do not reproduce quickly. Too many are being caught and some species may die out. Farming fish. Fish have been farmed in some parts of the world for thousands of years. Farming fish can help to save the world's wild fish, but only if it is done carefully. Feeding fish. Farmed fish are fed a diet containing all the nutrients they need for healthy growth. The fish grow quickly and, when they are the right size, they are taken to market. A worker feeds salmon at a fish farm in Maine. Salmon farms. Salmon are raised in large, floating cages, along the coasts of countries such as Scotland and Norway. The salmon can swim about in the cages, but they cannot escape. A salmon farm in Scotland. Did you know? Each year, salmon farms around the world produce more than 1 million tons of fish. Trout farming. Trout are also raised on fish farms. There can be problems with farmed fish. The fish may become diseased and have to be treated with chemicals, which can cause pollution. Salmon. Trout. Shrimp ponds. Shrimp farming is common along tropical coastlines. Mangrove swamps are cleared to make way for shrimp farms. This upsets the local food chain, endangering plants and animals. A cooked shrimp. A shrimp pond in Thailand. Fish conservation. Overfishing means that too many fish are being taken from the world's oceans. There are several ways in which people can fish that protect future stocks. Protected breeds. One way to protect fish is to ban fishing in areas where endangered fish species breed. This gives young fish a chance to survive to adulthood so that they can breed. Fishing bans. When fishermen started using purse seine nets, they caught whole shoals of herring. Fishing in the North Sea was banned for a while to allow herring stocks to recover, but there are still not as many as there used to be. Fish markets. There are good stocks of some types of fish, such as pollock. People can help to protect fish by choosing to eat those that are plentiful instead of those that are dying out. Checking nets. Fishermen can use nets with larger holes, so that smaller, younger fish can escape and only the larger, older fish are caught. A fisherman checking a net. Did you know? The Marine Stewardship Council makes sure that stocks of fish are carefully managed. You can check the labels of seafood products to make sure they are approved by the Council. Ocean transport. Ships of all kinds carry people and goods around the world. Huge container ships carry goods, tankers are full of oil, and cruise ships have thousands of passengers on board. Propeller dangers. Sometimes, marine animals and boats crash into each other. Animals can be seriously hurt by the propeller blades at the back of a boat. Many manatees, right, for example, have been harmed by tourist boats getting too close. A manatee inspects a propeller off the coast of Florida. Sonar confusion. Some scientists believe that booming sounds produced by submarines can confuse marine mammals, such as whales and dolphins. It may cause the animals to swim into shallow water and become stranded on beaches. Did you know? In 2002, 14 beaked whales were stranded and died on beaches around the Canary Islands, in the Atlantic Ocean. A naval exercise using sonar may have confused them. Shipwreck. Sometimes, cargo ships sink during storms or after collisions and their load falls into the sea. The MS Napoli, right, broke up off the south coast of England in 2007. Its containers were washed up onto nearby beaches. Containers from the Napoli washed up on the coast of southern England. Oil spills. Tankers transport millions of tons of oil across the world's oceans. There have been many accidents involving oil tankers, where spilled oil ends up in the water. Tanker wreck. In 1993, the Brar was stranded in water off the coast of Scotland. The wind and waves carried oil along the coast and onto nearby beaches. Oil pours out of the Brar tanker, onto the surface of the water. Cleaning the shore. It is difficult to clean an oily beach. Tractors are needed to dig up the oily sand, and rocks have to be pressure cleaned with powerful jets of water. Sometimes it is better to let the oil break down naturally. Wildlife under threat. Any bird, mammal, fish, or other animal that swims into an oil slick gets covered in the thick oil. It sticks to the bird's feathers and animal's fur, and blocks fish's gills. Many die right away, but a few may be rescued. Helping animals. Birds try to clean the oil off their feathers and end up swallowing it. Oily birds are taken to rescue centers, where they are cleaned and cared for until they are well enough to be released. Did you know? One of the worst oil spills happened in 1989, when the Exxon Valdez leaked 10 million tons of oil into the sea around Alaska. Up to 500,000 birds, 5,000 sea otters, 250 bald eagles, and many salmon, whales, and seals died. Dumping ground. Over the years, people have dumped a lot of waste, such as garbage, chemicals, and sewage, in the world's oceans. Tides carry the waste out of sight, but it still harms marine animals. Killing fish. Fish need clean water full of oxygen so they can breathe. Fish living in coastal waters can be harmed by sewage, fertilizers, and chemicals emptied into the sea. Extra nutrients caused by sewage and fertilizers can increase bacteria growth. This uses up all the oxygen in the water, so the fish die. Polluting sewage. Millions of quarts of sewage, left, is emptied into the oceans each year. Some of it is treated, but a lot is raw. Raw sewage smells horrible when it washes back onto beaches. It also contains harmful bacteria that cause disease. Garbage hazards. Garbage often sinks to the seabed, where ocean creatures can be entangled. It also washes up on beaches, where it can harm birds and animals. Waste by sea. Many countries have strict rules about the ways in which garbage is dealt with on land. The rules for dumping waste from ships, above, far out at sea are less strict. Did you know? Cruise ships create 1,300 gallons, 5,000 liters, of sewage and 7,900 gallons, 30,000 liters, of wastewater a day. Raw sewage can be dumped in the sea if the ship is at least 12 miles, 19 kilometers, from land. Dangers to animals. Each year, hundreds of thousands of animals die because of garbage in the oceans. Some die after eating the garbage, while others are trapped in old fishing nets and lines. Cleaning up. The tides wash garbage onto beaches all around the world. Recently, volunteers found more than 370,000 pieces of litter on 116 miles, 187 kilometers, of British beaches. Boats are used in some places to scoop garbage out of the sea before it washes ashore. A garbage clearing boat in France. Floating garbage. Floating plastic bags can look a little like jellyfish and are eaten by dolphins, whales, and turtles. The bags can block animals' guts and cause them to starve and die. A spinner dolphin playing with a plastic bag. Killer nets. Some of the largest fishing nets are many miles long. They hang like curtains in the ocean. As well as fish, the nets catch dolphins, whales, sharks, and turtles. These animals become tangled in the nets and may die. Freeing trapped animals. Divers around the world help to save trapped animals such as turtles, dolphins, and even whales. They cut them free from the nets so they can swim away. A diver frees a turtle that was trapped in a shrimp net. Freed turtle. Did you know? In 2002, a minke whale was found dead on a beach in France. It had 1,750 pounds, 800 kilograms, of plastic bags in its stomach. Whaling. Many species of whale are protected today, but this has not always been the case. For hundreds of years, people hunted whales for their meat and oil, and some species almost died out. Whaling today. In 1986, some countries agreed to ban whaling. It was decided, however, that some native people could still hunt and kill whales, and that some could be killed for scientific reasons. Countries such as Japan and Iceland want to start whale hunting again. A dead whale is dragged ashore in the Madeira Islands in 1972, before whale hunting was banned. Whaling in the past. There was a huge increase in whaling in the 1840s. People used a weapon called a harpoon to kill the whales. More than 40,000 whales were caught each year. By the 1970s, there were fewer than 6,000 whales left. A picture of whaling ships from the 1800s. Whaling protests. Many people think whaling is wrong, and organizations such as Greenpeace lead protests against it. Greenpeace boats, right, try to stop whaling boats from catching whales. Herding whales. Each year, the people of the Faroe Islands carry out a pilot whale hunt. They drive the whales into bays, using boats, and kill them in shallow water. Some local people eat the meat and say the hunt is part of their culture. Others want it stopped. Dead whales lie on a beach in the Faroe Islands. Did you know? Since the ban in 1986, almost 27,300 whales have been killed. Many of these have been killed by Japanese whaling boats, for scientific purposes. Global warming. Global warming is the gradual increase in the temperature of the Earth's surface. Scientists believe this will cause climates to change, sea levels to rise, and extreme weather to become more common. Changing habits. As the sea gets warmer, some marine animals change their behavior. They appear in places where they have not been seen before. As coral reefs die, see pages 210 to 211, some sharks may have to look elsewhere for food. Whale shark. Smaller hunting grounds. Warmer weather is causing the Arctic ice to melt earlier each year. This causes problems for polar bears, right? The bears hunt on the ice and, if it melts, they are not able to catch enough food and may starve. Polar bears. Did you know? As oceans warm up, ice melts, the water expands, and sea levels rise. Sea levels have increased by as much as 10 inches, 25 centimeters, in the last 100 years. Polluting the atmosphere. Global warming is thought to be caused by an increase in greenhouse gases, such as carbon dioxide. These gases trap heat in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is produced when oil, gas, and coal are burned. A power station releasing greenhouse gases. How we can help. Everybody can help to slow down global warming by walking and cycling, which does not burn oil. If we travel in cars, buses, or airplanes, more carbon dioxide is produced, which may increase global warming. Saving coral reefs. Coral reefs are fragile habitats that are easily damaged. They are under threat from global warming, water pollution, and overfishing. Killing coral. Corals like warm seas, but, if the temperature increases, the organisms living in the corals leave and the corals turn white and die, below. This is called bleaching. Clearing reefs. Like beaches, coral reefs can also become covered in garbage. Divers can help to conserve the reefs by removing plastic bags, glass bottles, cans, and other garbage. Creating new reefs. Shipwrecks are soon covered in corals and other reef animals. New reefs can be created by sinking old ships, cars, and tanks in warm, shallow water. A motorcycle on the wreck of SS Thistlegorm in the Red Sea. Making a new home. This squirrel fish, below, is hiding in a pipe on an artificial reef. The rough surfaces help sponges and corals to become attached. Squirrel fish. Did you know? The world's largest artificial reef was created when the aircraft carrier USS Oriskany was sunk off the coast of Florida in 2006. Using ocean power. One way to stop global warming is to use renewable sources of energy, such as the sun, wind, and water, instead of coal, oil, and gas. Oceans offer a source of wind, wave, and tidal power. Wind power at sea. It is often windy at sea, so wind farms, can be built in shallow water near coasts. Electricity created by wind turbines is carried to the shore by underwater cables. This wind farm is off the coast of Denmark. Did you know? There are 20 turbines on the Middle Grunden wind farm off Copenhagen Harbour in Denmark. They supply 5% of the electricity needed by the city. Wave power. Waves smash against the coasts with great energy. In this wave power station, above, the water is forced down a narrow channel and spins a turbine, which generates electricity. Effects on bird life. Planners have to be careful when choosing where to build an offshore wind farm. It must not be on bird migration routes or too close to seabird colonies. Effects on sea life. It is important to make sure that wave power stations and wind farms do not harm the habitats of marine animals, such as porpoises, above, or damage the seabed. Protecting oceans. There are many ways to protect oceans. Beaches where turtles and other marine animals breed can be safeguarded. International laws can protect whales and dolphins, and coral reefs can be made into nature reserves. Studying the oceans. There is a lot to learn about the world's oceans. People have only just started to explore the deepest parts. By studying the oceans, scientists will be able to find ways of protecting them for the future. Ocean parks. Important areas of the oceans, such as coral reefs and fish breeding grounds, can be made into marine nature reserves. Here, all animals and plants are protected and fishing is banned. A helping hand. Many baby turtles die on beaches before they even reach the sea. One way to make sure more survive is to collect turtle eggs, and keep them safe until the tiny turtles hatch. The baby turtles are then taken straight out to the sea. Ecotourism. People love to watch whales and dolphins, and to dive on coral reefs. By protecting ocean life, local people may be able to earn money from tourism instead of from industries that harm the environment. Did you know? The world's largest marine reserve is being planned. It will stretch for about 1,400 miles, 2,200 kilometers, along a chain of islands, north of the Hawaiian Islands, in the Pacific. The end.